But because the power of taking care of yourself first, you're able to then take care of other people. And that's the only way you can do it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the What You Don't Hear podcast. This is a life podcast. It's a life story podcast. It's a bit of an open journal dive into people's lives as I sit and I uncover the real story behind my guest's journey, finding out what makes them who they are, digging into the parts of their story that we otherwise probably wouldn't get to hear. I am your host. My name is Ross Tyson. I'm a creative of many kinds, a self-employed maker of many things, and as you probably guessed, one of those things I do is podcasting as I bring you, well, a couple different shows at this point, but this one right here, I bring to you every other Monday, and in this episode, I'm bringing you this conversation virtually. So for the first time since back at the 50th episode, I virtually sit down with my guest this week, and for the first time ever, I sit down with them to do the full story conversation virtually. And honestly, I truly loved it just as much as I would doing them in person like I normally do. I gotta be honest with you, I wasn't sure if I would enjoy it or not. But it's a killer conversation this week with my new friend Davey Muise as we really dive deep into things. But before we open up those floodgates into all things Davey, you know how it's going down at this point. We got to pay some bills because we are supported by a few wonderful friends this episode. First, we're going to be talking lots of music in this episode, so it's only fitting that we've got a couple music-themed sponsors because, let me get your attention, musicians, producers, music makers of any kind, because this next part is for you. Because this episode is sponsored in part by Ingram Audio. And guess what, folks? Ingram Audio wants you to spend less time mixing your music and more time just simply creating it in general, because Ingram Audio's goal is to create unique, user-friendly plugins for musicians and creatives of any skill level. It seriously does not matter whether you're a professional or a hobbyist trying to write your next jam. Ingram Audio creates products to make the creative process just run smoothly so that writing can just be more fun and a lot less stressful. They've got drum libraries to mix templates and MIDI loop tracks. They have you covered. And they just recently launched a brand new product called the Producer Kit. It's an all-new drum library that's mix ready for you straight out the box. It's got samples that have been mixed to near perfection, allowing you to just dive right in and get to work. So hop in, choose a mix preset, and you're good to go. For real, it's made that easy. So if you want more info on the Producer Kit or any of their other products, because there is more, if you want to check it out for yourself, well, hop over to ingramaudio.co for all the info and purchase options that you could need. And they've also got some free stuff over there that you can snag while you're there to sample things out. So go get on that. Now, sticking with the music theme for a moment here, if you're in Ohio, or, well, I don't know, I suppose if you feel like maybe traveling to Columbus, Ohio, I've got some cool concerts that are going down here to tell you all about, because we are also supported by our friends over at Promo West Productions. They have been supporting this show for well over a year now, and that is just still so damn rad to me, which means over a year of telling you about all the cool shows that they've been bringing to Columbus, and guess what? I've got some more for you in this episode. So, if you feel like going to a concert, if you're interested in catching a live show, well, then maybe you want to check out one of these upcoming concerts brought to you by Promo West. They've got Joywave at Newport Music Hall on Friday, April 14th. Snarky Puppy, also at Newport Music Hall on Friday, April 21st. And then Saint Motel at Newport Music Hall on April 25th. And then Half Alive is going down at Kemba Live on April 25th as well. So if you want to grab tickets, you can jump to axs.com, or as always, for more information on these or any other upcoming concerts, you can find all that info that you need over at promowestlive.com. And now one more thing here, because something Davey and I also talk a good bit about in this episode is our passions for photography and videography and honestly just creative adventures in general. So it's also fitting that I get to tell you about my next sponsor, none other than our newest friends over at Midwest Photo. Midwest Photo is a video, audio, and of course, photo store located right here in Columbus, Ohio. Now, Midwest is a place that I, as someone who has, well, dabbled in photography a whole lot over the years, it's a place that I've been to many times for many different reasons, and I'm here to tell you that it's a real rad place filled with real rad people, and I am genuinely so excited that they have hopped on recently as a sponsor here on the show. So what is Midwest Photo? What all is inside the walls of Midwest Photo? Well, there's plenty of reasons that I've went through over the years, whether it's to purchase some camera gear, ranging from everything from cameras themselves to lighting, backdrops, tripods, one of which I use to film this show on. But the list goes on and on, all the way down to the very small things like SD cards. They have it all. Now, of course, if you're not looking to purchase, the good news is they offer gear rental as well. It's in a list of many services that their awesome staff are ready to help you with the moment you walk in. For real, whenever I've went in there, for really anything, there's always somebody ready to answer some questions and talk about video or photo, all the things. They're ready to go, ready to help you however you need. But along with the rentals, they also offer full in-house printing services, film development and scanning, used gear, buy and sell, and they even hold classes and events so you can further your knowledge about the art and craft of photography. Now, the cool thing is, when you shop with them, you're not just supporting local and shopping small, but you're also supporting some people who just simply love photography and the creative industry in general. And they do a lot of work to support the local photo community here in Columbus. So go check them out. If you do, tell them that Ross over at What You Don't Hear sent you their way. If you want to find out more information on everything that they're about, you can follow them online at impex_photo_video, or simply jump to impex.com. That's MPEX.com. And I cannot thank them enough for sponsoring this episode. So shouts honestly to all the sponsors. I seriously appreciate every single one of them. It helps keep the mics on around here, of course. And what do you say we turn those mics on officially and get to this week's conversation? Now, like I said, this was my first ever virtual full story conversation and episode. So it was interesting to not be sitting with Davey in person, but it truly didn't make a difference because my dude can talk just as much as I can. So it was the perfect mix. And we seriously have a blast of a conversation here. We talk about a lot, and I could, of course, tell you about all those things here, but how about I just let Davey tell you himself, and we dive into it. Let's get to it. Episode 81 of What You Don't Hear in my conversation with Davey Muise.
Let's make it official. Let's do it.
Let's make this happen. Yeah. Davey, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me, man. I've been waiting for it.
Man, I'm stoked that you wanted to be on the show in general. You have been on my list of potential guests for a while.
Cool.
And also, you and I, like, we had a few, like, almost doing it, then not doing it, and so much stuff has been happening, like, on both of our ends,
totally.
It sounds like.
Yeah.
But I'm stoked that we're actually getting to, at least virtually, sit down and make this happen.
I like it.
Which I've done a little bit of in the past, but this is sort of a new venture, but also not a new venture. But I'm excited to, like, honestly see how the conversation dynamic goes in this setting. And I also feel like you're a really good person to test that out with.
Yeah, I'm the best. Honestly, yeah, I could have a conversation with a wall. So yeah, because most of yours it's in person, and like having a vibe with someone in person is a real thing. So we'll try to make it as vibey as we can.
Oh, for sure. I feel like we're kind of already keeping things off of like, oh yeah, we've been friends for years. It doesn't matter. We're talking about anything.
Totally.
I am wondering if you might see my cat dart around in the background at some point.
My cat is sleeping 5 feet away from me, and I am doing my best to not go and touch her right now. So
yes, right. Mm-hmm. I know. See, my cat, she knows whenever I'm like doing something on my computer, like whenever I start talking, for some reason that gets her amped up. So she just like starts freaking out whenever something's going on.
They know the important times. That's the thing.
I know they really do. And they're like, hey, I need a cameo in this at least. So yeah, she might be making an appearance. We'll find out.
Oh, I would love that.
But yeah, dude, I'm very stoked even in general, we're meeting for the very first time. Again, it's virtually, but we're meeting.
Yeah.
We have been like internet friends for a handful of years.
Yeah, for a while.
And of course, even before that, before I we really started communicating via the internet, have listened to your previous bands and all that sort of stuff for years.
Sure.
But I'm stoked that we're getting to actually sit and get to know each other now.
Yeah, me too.
And of course, within that, like there's so much that I want to dive into. What I would love to almost kick off with is where you're at with things right now, which I know kind of seems almost counterintuitive, but then I want to kind of dive in and reverse engineer it because you just recently launched a new project. And so I think like, let's almost start there. And then I want to kind of fill in all the gaps.
We'll Tarantino this bitch back.
Exactly. And we'll bring it full circle.
Cool.
So how do you pronounce Hematite?
Hematite.
Hematite.
Yeah.
Okay. So walk me through like that, because that's the newest thing. It's the freshest thing.
Yeah.
So let's start there. What's it been like to like get that new project out there? What is the new project exactly? And just kind of what has that process been like? Because that is kind of the freshest thing on your plate, at least to my knowledge.
No, for sure. Yeah, it definitely is. So hematite, people are like, what is hematite? I'm like, it's a precious stone. It's a rock. Like I have it right here. When I was a kid, I was like a rock and minerals kid. I like loved stones and fossils and all that stupid stuff until not stupid stuff, but awesome stuff. But until I discovered like skateboarding and girls, that was rocks were my life. So I always carried around a piece of hematite with me, still do. There's one in my pocket. There's one here. I don't know what it is about it. I just had comfort in it. So when I was like 12 or 13, I was like, I'm going to name a band Hematite. And I did it when I was 38. So, we're kind of full circle on that. But
I love that.
So I had done some heavy music for, years. I did a decade in Vanna. I was in a band called Trove for a while. Tour, did the whole thing nonstop. And after Vanna broke up, in 2017, I didn't stop. I just kept on going and going. And there's like two sides to that sword, right? It's like, I love touring. I love music. I was doing some mental health speaking, but also I was doing solo shows. I was doing stuff with Trove. And I got to the point where I really needed to stop and slow down. And nothing was going to do that for me until 2020 came around, which obviously everybody's got their own stories. Everybody's got their own things that they went through that year. But, within a year, pandemic hit. I lost jobs. Kind of had like a mental health crisis, like a lot of people really went through. I got into a car accident, so I was laid up for, I'm still in recovery for that. And then my dad passed away. This was all in the course of like 1 year. The universe was like, you don't want to slow down? You're fucking slowing down. So I took some time off from music and away from things to really gain a sort of perspective that's outside. I have been in one way or another touring since I was 19 years old, so you spend 20 years doing one thing nonstop. It's kind of like when that ends, it's like, who am I? What am I? What do I do now? I had stopped with music for a couple of years, and there was a various amount of, unhealthy situations within the touring industry that I had to remove myself from. It's kind of like, instead of, dancing with the devil, like take a seat, take a time out. Like there's no need to be up there doing that kind of stuff, especially when you're not in a healthy state of mind to be doing this. So taking some time off was great because first of all, it allowed me the space to deal with the accident, to deal with my father passing, to deal with my career change, career shifts and stuff that I wanted to do. I needed that room and that space to do that. And I had always kind of had this like, I kind of grew up, watching, like everybody else, watching some like old Westerns, my parents, things my parents watched. I also grew up around motorcycle clubs. My uncles were in motorcycle clubs. My other uncles were into hot rods. So like, there's this like whole swell of culture that I've been around. That's kind of why I look like an off-duty truck driver, just sort of like my vibe. But I kind of been around all this stuff and playing metal and metalcore for so long, right? Like, I think I started in it obviously because it was a community. It was a place to go to like express my anger and all that kind of stuff. But I have other range of emotions other than anger and frustration. And, I had all these different kinds of music I want to do. And I always kind of wanted to do this. Like there's never like quite could put my finger on it, but I wanted to do sort of like a Western vibe meets like Nine Inch Nails, meets like, I don't know, the heavy stuff that I do love about heavy music. And I'd been kind of searching for a while and kept on joking about it and was like, I'm going to country. Everyone's like, what are you doing next? And I'm like, I'm going to country, baby. Country's next for me. And within that kind of like, not joke, but within that, like, you know, it made me explore my country, lineups a lot bigger and dive back into some like cool Western stuff and then discover like there's so many newer bands I've never heard of making music that I'm like, this is the wave. This is what I want to do. And so kind of like a lot of things that happen of late, this is kind of like a little bit of a pandemic project, you know? So my buddy Andrew, who's played in, he's played in To Speak of Wolves. He is legend. He's done like a lot of like really cool heavy stuff. And we knew each other from that world. He actually came to visit Portland when it was like, they had just lifted like the first mask mandate and people were traveling. And he came out to Portland to visit a friend and we got a beer and I just was talking to him about this project that I want to do. And he's like, dude, I want to do this project that's like, to him, we were talking about the same thing. He just had different vocabulary for it. He's like, like something that could like be the soundtrack to like spooky movies. And I'm like, yeah, yep. Okay. Yeah. To me, it's like something that could be the soundtrack to like True Detective or, what's that vampire movie that everyone says are music sound, a vampire TV show, True Blood.
Oh yeah.
I loved True Blood. Horny vampires. Who doesn't love that?
Right. They're on the rage.
Exactly. So, I kind of like really liked this whole stuff. And for me, it would be a complete departure. And, when I got to spend the last like week of my father's life with him, in the hospital and hospice. And, we had a lot of really good talks. I told him I had taken a break from music and he was like, yeah, I know, I'm upset about that. I'm like, okay. He just, since day one, my parents are divorced and I think my dad's thing he attached himself to was my music. He always was very supportive, wearing the shirts, telling people my son's in this, whatever. So he was kind of like, you should be playing music. And I kind of like took it as a challenge, as like my dad's like sort of like, I guess final wishes is for me to start playing music again. And this kind of coincided with Andrew coming to visit Portland. And I just really was like, fuck it. I think I'm in a place where I need to say some stuff. I have some things to talk about again. And, he goes home and a little time passes and he's like, hey, I got a bunch of songs. I don't know if they're going to work, but I'm going to send them your way. And he sends them. And I'm not kidding you. He sends them and within a few days, I send back demos with vocal recordings on them. I just was like, I literally just did it with like my iPhone headphones and was like, let me just do a rough to see if you dig this. He listened to him, his buddies listened to him at the bar and they were like, yo, this is it. Like, let's do this. And I was just so excited that someone like our two things like kind of like lined up at the same time to do. And I told him, I was like, this is a big new venture for me. He's like ass deep in country. He plays for this group called Maddie and Tay and a group called Big 50. So he's like out there in Nashville doing his thing. Like for me, it's a whole new world for me. Right. But for me, it's like having, we've had some practices, we got some shows coming up. And for me, like, it's that same feeling that I got when I was like 15 and you ran through your set because who knows when you're going to play it, but you're going to run through your set with your band 100 times. And it felt like that last time you run through it before you break and someone's mom makes you sandwiches and stuff like that. And you're like, man, that was a cool song. That's what it feels like every time now. And it's like something I haven't had in a really long time. There's no business as of right now. I mean, there is a little bit of business, but there's no business attached to it. There's no deadlines. There's no labels. There's no one telling me what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. And I think because of that, the ultimate freedom has reminded me of like, oh shit, this feeling, this is why I started playing music all those years ago. It's bringing me back to those times again. So, we're kind of, I guess we're still in a pandemic, but we are removed enough where things can happen again. And so we've booked a show and we're putting a record out now and this whole thing. And though there's the elements of business there, putting out the record, doing the PR, all that kind of stuff, doing podcasts, which I'll talk for days. So please, the more, the better. But the feeling that it gives me is it's the feeling it gave me when I was 15 years old. It feels like the reason why I started doing this. So I got a couple of buddies from Portland, and we kind of put together a live band, and it's been great, man. It's been honestly such a big, it's actually, I had therapy this morning, and my therapist is like, so what are you getting out of Hematite that you weren't getting out of other projects, maybe? And I kind of came to this conclusion this morning that it makes me feel the way I used to feel. And I think that I would be content. I could play a show once a month, I think. I don't think I need to get into a van or a bus and start doing the touring again. I think that I can play some gigs here and there and get that feeling that I was chasing around the world for a decade. I can get it right in my own backyard. So, man, it's a cool feeling. I'm even happy talking about it. It's the first time I've been truly like liberated and happy about something musically involved in a long time, because as much as I love Vanna and Trove, there's so much that goes on with that. 5 other people, the business, the labels, anybody involved. So this is just purely like making music again for the right reasons.
Right. And that's like such a big thing that I feel like I have a similar conversation with a lot of just like creatives in general. Yeah. Where, and maybe it's, as we mature and we grow up and we learn what's important and what's not and all this sort of stuff. But I feel like that sort of conversation is something that a lot of people are starting to figure out more often now. And what I mean by that is the idea of, well, what's important to me? That's what I want to do. But more so, I need to figure out why I want to do it and how it fulfills me rather than I just need to do it. Because I do think there was like, and I'm not saying no one's ever, had that, understanding before.
You're nailing it.
But yeah, I think there's been, for so long, especially I think with the growth with social media and all that sort of stuff, like everything is just like nonstop all the time. We have to keep going. And I think it's super easy to get caught in that. So then we're just going 100 miles an hour, kind of like you were saying. It's like, all right, cool. Now the business element is getting involved, and now there's other people getting involved, and there's all these other different parts and players and all this sort of stuff. And whether something gets big or it stays small or whatever, I do think it's so easy to immediately, like, you almost create your own machine and then get caught in the machine.
100%. Yeah. It's one of those things, like my last band that I did, Trove, like it started out as like a bunch of friends were playing some songs. And I'm like, oh, a label wants to put out this thing. Oh, we're going to get this tour. And then all of a sudden, you're right back at it. And it's funny because, having I don't know are you married?
No.
Okay. Get a wife. They're awesome. They're so good.
Hey, you know what?
Or a husband, whatever. Like, whatever. But a spouse can look at you and go, you're doing the thing again. And I'm like, fuck, I'm doing the thing again, Yeah. Totally. And I think, I had to take a step back. I started therapy full time, again. I've been in therapy like my whole life, but for a while I was like, I'm cured, baby. Let's go. I'm good. And then, pride comes before the downfall. So, I started therapy again, and I had to answer these questions go back and be like, so why did you start? Why did you start playing music? Why did you join Vanna? And we got to a point where it was, why did you stay on the road? And I didn't have an answer beyond that's what I do. That's what I do. I tour in a band. I'm a singer. I did some mental health speaking. I own a clothing brand. Like I started like branding myself out. And I think that, how old are you?
I'm 30.
Okay, so I'm 38. So like my generation is the first one that didn't have any of this shit and now have had this shit. And it's like, like you were saying, it's exhausting. Like for my career, I'm a photographer and videographer. I work for a multi-brand company and I make content. And like for them, I'm constantly like churning out, because that's what you got. You keep on keeping. And it's like a telltale thing of like, that was my life. I just kept on going and going and going. And there's like it's like this, like, I always say 2 things can be true. I was grinding at my passion, loving it, succeeding, getting to a place where I'm like, this is not only personally, emotionally paying off, but also like we're starting to make money. We are starting to be a little bit more of a viable thing. We're getting all these tours. And then the other side is I'm ignoring my mental health. I'm ignoring my friends' mental health that are in my band. I am kind of being a hypocrite with telling everybody, check in with yourself and do this and X, Y, Z. And meanwhile, your boy's just a cog in a machine moving because, I think, I feel like we're going to get pretty deep on this thing, but it always comes back to like, it's on some childhood trauma, right? Like some childhood trauma that wasn't worked out. So I'm a people pleaser. So I want the 4 guys in my band, my 2 managers, the label, my booking agent. I want everybody happy with me. I come last when it comes to that kind of stuff, and taking a step back is like, I had to do a lot of healing from that. But the hardest part is correcting your behavior to not continue to get yourself in a spot where it's an unhealthy thing for you to do. So I think that I have, I loved my past projects and everything I did with it. Hindsight's 2020, but I would have changed a lot if I could have. So that's why I think moving forward, how I like to move in the world now is like, does this, like, if I'm going to take on a project that's not a paid project, not a work thing, and it's like a passion thing, where does this fit into my life? How much joy and love and happiness does this one thing give me? And then how thin am I stretched? I'm willing to stretch a little thin for a little bit of happiness and like a final result of like, fuck, that was so cool. I'm so glad we did this. Like the music thing, like I'm stretching myself like, a little thin. We're peanut butter. We're not jelly right now. We're peanut butter. We're still together. Still got nuts all over the place. But a second that becomes too thin, that's where I have to back off because my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my career, my relationship with my best friends and my team, like that supersedes anything else. And, music can get in the way of that kind of stuff. Career stuff can get in the way of that kind of stuff. So I think I'm at it again, but I'm like with a whole new set of boundaries, a whole new set of rules for myself. And more importantly, like I'm just having fucking fun, man. That's really what it's about. It's like, I honestly like haven't checked on streams. I haven't really checked on things. I'm like, I don't know what to say, man. Like, I don't really care. I just want to have fun. And, my friends like the music and some people like it. And I'm making all the music videos for this project, which is really fun to like me and my wife just bust out and shoot a music video for a couple hours at the coast. Like, that's cool to me. Like that's a project that I get to involve the people that I love. I shot a music video where I basically just told all of my friends, I was like, hey, you guys are going to go to this pool hall. We're going to play a bunch of pool. I'm going to get you guys drinks and food all night. That's it. And shot a video and the video came out. They were all like, I didn't even know this was happening. And I'm like, right. It was just all of us hanging out. To me, it's my friends, but to anybody watching the video, it's just a random group of people partying and it's a cool visual thing to do. So I'm having a lot of fun doing all of it together. I don't even know what your question was, but I told you I can just go on anything for a while.
Listen, this show is the place for the rambles and the rants and you take it wherever you like.
You got the right guy.
Yes, the more you're telling stories and the more I get to listen, perfect. When people hear me talk enough on this show, like I'm here every episode. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
They don't need to hear more from me.
Yeah, that's true.
But something that I love that I feel like you're describing is like, even as you're explaining, your relationship with, your wife, your friends, this project, any project, your creative endeavors in general, like what it all sounds like to me is like the classic case of one, like you can't pour from an empty cup, right? That cliche saying. And what it sounds like you're doing, and I'm saying this because I feel like I went on a very, very, very similar journey. And have ended up at like the same place where you realize like, okay, I need to be able to keep my cup as filled as possible, not in a perfect way because that doesn't exist, but what can I do that keeps fulfilling me, keeps bringing me joy and happiness? And then you are a better version of yourself so you can continue to pour from your cup into all of those things and keep them at a healthier level. And that is such a thing, just like we were talking about, that spawned, this whole kind of side quest we're on here is like, that whole thing of getting caught in the machine or always kind of being in that chase of like, I need it to do this well. I need to keep doing this. I need this amount of business, this amount of attention, whatever it is. Even we're sometimes, I think, subconsciously chasing those things. Cause like you said, when you got asked, why did you stay on the road? You were like, well, that's just what I do.
Yeah.
And I think that like something that I identified in those same ways in all of my like different creative endeavors is that we start these creative endeavors being like, I want to do this and I'm going to bet on myself and I'm stoked and I'm going to make it happen. And then we effectively create our own machine and get stuck in our own machine and do the thing that we tried to avoid in the first place.
Right.
And so what that I think something that's so strange but so easy to come from that is we actually lose ourselves in trying to do the thing that we were doing for ourselves in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, totally.
Because our identity stops, and again, this is all me speaking from like my perspective of how I've kind of, experienced these things personally, but like, because in the last like 2 years, this has been like my journey of like self-love and self-development, really, really understanding myself. Mm-hmm. And so I say all that to say that like, I could identify that for a while, I lost my identity in the things that I was doing because my identity was those things, not an extension of me. Right. And so in the same way, everything that we're talking about, like, yes, it was enjoyable and I was so stoked to, and hey, listen, sometimes we have to put in the work if we want something to work. Right. So there's a tricky balance. Like you're going to lose a little bit of yourself, then you got to work to gain it back. Like, I think it's all sort of a part of that dance. Realistically, there is no perfect, unbruisable way to go through it. Right. But like that for me, like it was a 2020 thing for me as well. The forced slowdown, ended up, again, comes from terrible things, but for me individually, the forced slowdown ended up being a good thing because I was able to stop and reflect and be like, oh, now I have to stop going 100 miles an hour every day. So now I can sit and look at like, what am I even going 100 miles an hour for? Right. And is it fulfilling me in the same way that I thought it was? Because like once we start stacking up those wins, hey, we started the band, dope. We played our first show, dope. We got our first tour, awesome. We got a record deal, awesome. Like you've got those things to continue chasing. But then at some point when it starts working, it's just chasing to chase. We're just on the ride at that point. And it's so easy to kind of begin coasting in that. And not that the hard work stops because we continue to do that, but we don't take the time to stop and check in with ourselves, just like you said, of like, okay, is this still bringing me the same joy that I hoped it would at the beginning? And yes or no, and then what do I need to do to kind of replan and re-strategize around that? And like, that was the same thing for me where like I sat and in 2020, I was like, I never want to do any sort of video project ever again. Right. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. But it was because I was banking on all of my fulfillment coming from one avenue of that.
Exactly. How many likes did I get? How many views did I get? Oh, well, therefore, if I didn't get enough, this is crap. This isn't anything. This isn't good work. My whole thing to kind of back that is like I say now, for what? Take an inventory and say, for what? What am I doing this for? So am I doing this for everybody else? Am I doing this because I had such an eloquent word yesterday, and I can't think of it now, but am I constantly trying to one up my previous success? Am I taking the things that I did and going, instead of going, I started the band. I got these shows. We got signed to a thing. We did these amazing tours. Are you looking at it and going, wow, we got the chance to do all of this stuff? Or you go, I did that. What's next? I did that. What's next? And for me, that's what it was. It was like, I wasn't taking a second to sit back and appreciate, holy shit, I just got back from a sold out tour in Europe. Like I don't even speak the same language as these people, but they know my songs. You live in that moment. I bask in that moment, and then I get home and I'm like, what's next? That wasn't enough. I got to go to, next time there was 3 dates not sold out. Next time I want the whole thing sold out. Okay. Then the whole thing's sold out this time. Well, it could have been a bigger capacity. I want a bigger capacity. It's like almost this like self-loathing, like what you've done is not good enough. And it's a handful of things, right? It's how you grew up. It's the culture that we're in, this like constantly like, that was a great podcast episode. I hope the next one's even better than that. Well, why? Why can't that one just live as that one? And this is going to live as something else. That's kind of where I've been at recently in my discovery of like, I don't need to outdo the things I've done. I did them. I can be proud of them. They exist. They're there. When the band first breaks up, you get a lot of people being like, funny, I actually had a kid yesterday. I don't know if he's a grown man or what he is, but call everybody a kid. I posted a photo, one of my photo works, whatever, and dude commented on it and finished the lyric that I put on the thing. And I was like, hell yeah. And then the next line was, I'm not going to lie, I miss Vanna. And in my head, I was like, I had like so many typed and erased things out to him, But I'm like, number one, that mentality is what ruined me in the beginning of the end of that band towards the other band. Is like, Trove has to be better than Vanna. Trove has to be bigger than Vanna. Trove has to outdo and I'm not gonna lie, I fucking said those things to my bandmates. Like, we're gonna be bigger than this. We're gonna do better than this. That's such a bullshit attitude, because Vanna was awesome. It was what it was. It did a thing. Leave it there. Let it be a thing. Instead of being like, well, everything I have to do now has to outweigh that thing. Why? For what? Like, this is a new endeavor, you know? And this is like kind of like the mentality where I've been coming into recently, is that I don't need to be the dad that talks about the quarterback when he was a quarterback and threw that touchdown in high school. And like, you know, seeing a comment like that, I'm like, is that all I am to people? And I've learned a lot. You are whatever people are going to make you be to them, and I can't control that. So really, at the end of the day, I just kind of liked it and was like, thanks, man. I miss Vanna too, because I miss all those times. They were great. Music will be there forever. But for me, it's like, I can't number one, live in the idea of what I am to you. I can't be 2010 Dave for my whole life. You know, I can't do that. And that's like a double-edged thing too, because I don't want to be who I was in 2010 is not who I am today. And I hope that who you were in 2010, person commenting on my Instagram, is not who you are today. It's just that like we can be, and I've been my own demon in the way of forward progress, because as much as I say I'm not living in the past about things, I am. In my head, I'm living in the past. When people make comments like that, I'm like, I should know that I'm more than that, right? But I immediately go to, I guess that's all I am. I guess that's all I am to people. Best no one cares about this thing that I'm doing and this thing I'm doing. And it's not true, number one. But when you have such like memories and emotions tied to someone's music, and for me, myself, I have so much of myself tied to that, I'm still kind of answering the question of who I am. Who am I without being in a touring metal band? Like, who am I now? And what I've come up with is that who I am in a touring metal band was like 10% of who I am, because I was home and doing lots of other things. And I was a completely different, like a completely formed person. It wasn't just this one thing, but it consumed so much of my life. Not only was I in a band touring, I was working for our management company, managing other touring bands. So like my whole world was based on these like content, stats, plays, likes, views, all that. And for me, that wasn't something that was a healthy thing for me to be doing. You know, I have countless people in the industry that are my friends, and I respect the shit out of them for what they do and how they do it. But putting like a numerical value on like 5 dudes playing some passionate things they love is like just not it for me. And the more that I realized it, the more that I realized I didn't really fit into the music industry as far as the industry goes. I'm a musician, but I don't think I really fit into the music industry. And that can be said of all industry. You know, I do photo and video now, and though I follow, my entire Instagram following is, you know, photographers and videographers, which by the way, I super happy that you picked up a camera and started doing stuff. I saw those posts. I was like, let's go. Come on.
Yeah. Thank
you know, but with that also, it's too, is like, you can compare yourself to everybody else. You know, I get these ideas for shoots and I'll flip and be like, oh my God, that's exactly what I wanted to do. That doesn't mean that I can't do it now.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? Someone picked up a guitar and played a guitar solo. It doesn't mean that there's no more guitar solos out there for somebody to play, you know? You need to put your own passion and your own stamp on it. So I say, for what? What did I want to create this photo for? For me? Because if it's for me, then who gives a fuck if someone else already did? I could take some inspo from that. I can be like, wow, that person killed it. I see it in a different light. So I just have to stop and ask myself, for what? Like, what is this for? And if I don't have an answer for that, I'm probably not going to do that thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I don't have if my answer outweighs my happiness or my joy or my safety or anything like that, I'm just not going to do it anymore, man. And it's a lesson that I had to like, A, learn the hard way, and B, I think learn a little bit late in my life. You know, I because of the way that I lived, you know, it's like my entire career, you know, in music was started because I was, didn't love school. And all I did in school was I did like a video variety show, TV productions, and music. And I loved punk rock in high school and Warped Tour and all that kind of stuff. And I started touring when I got out of high school because truth be told, I was in a relationship where the person cheated on me and had a baby with somebody else. So I was like, okay, well, I don't want to fucking be here anymore. I'm playing in this band. I have a sidekick too. I can message promoters and hustle. And I started literally hustling, made a fake email and started being a booking agent from my band. And that's how I got the fuck out of here. I got out of here I needed to, because my life was like sort of not in a good place. So I started my career by running away. And at some point, you got to stop running. And you got to and that doesn't necessarily mean physically running, but at some point that life and who I was like split. And it was hard for a long time to do it. And the music is the only thing that really like kept me there. You know what I mean? It's like being in a terrible relationship where you're like, both like, just not good for each other, but the sex is great. You know what I mean? Like performing is where I find God in that, that's where I find and it's not performing for 10,000 people or 1,000 people or 100 or 10. It's just performing in general. At some point, this has all now come back to, I just want to play music for myself. And I actually don't care who listens. And I don't care who I hope you enjoy. I think for too long in my career, I'm a child of divorce. I was adopted from a drug, an abusive family, literally like left for dead at my birth. And so since day one, I've been begging for love. I've been fighting for love. I've been, please like the things I do. Please enjoy me. My mom used to invite people over on Sundays after church, and I would put in the karaoke machine and I'm like, oh, your friends are coming over? Well, for me to ensure that somebody stays in your life, you got to entertain them, right? So I want my mom to have friends because she's single. She's got no husband. So I'm going to put on this show and I'm going to be funny. And that's where I started putting on shows and performances at like 8 years old because I thought my mom's friends wouldn't come over if there's nothing fun going on. Do you understand? Like, so from an early age, it's please like my band. It's, I'll do anything. I will stay in an autograph line and talk to everybody for 3.5 hours till security's kicking us out. I will take 1 million photos. Oh, you need help with this scenario. And I actually got myself into a spot where like, I was in a bunch of people's like business, like I didn't fucking belong in. Because I was like, oh, you're a supporter of my band. You came to watch my band. You bought a t-shirt. You regrammed something or you like something. So therefore, I owe you all my love and all my life. I read an interview with myself not that long ago that said, if you bought VIP tickets to my show for like meet and greet and stuff, I will go to your house and I'll make a meal. I'll clean your house. I'll like walk your dogs because of like, and it's a joke, but like it is unhealthy to have that balance of like, I want you to like me so fucking bad and my band so bad that I'm willing to compromise things about myself, my boundaries, my things so you just fucking like my band, dude. And man, I've made a lot of good friends that way who are still my friends that have been supporters. And then I've met a lot of people that have used that in like the most like evil ways, you know what I mean? Whether it be mental health problems, whether it be simply just like only hitting me up when Warped Tour's coming around because I wanted the guest list, like, and I would still maintain relationships with these people because they like my band, man. So it got to a place where it just was so unhealthy for me to be doing this because the damage was already done, right? I'd already like set myself up as this person. I mean, I shared every fucking detail of my life on social media. I had like a vlog. I thought, well, this is what I have to do so people like my band, My wife is a very mysterious private person. She doesn't have any social media. She really wasn't that type of person. And she's been a good, like, my best friend who lives with us too. He's actually from Columbus, Ohio. Shout out Columbus, Ohio. My best friend, Evan, he's also very like under the radar. He's a great photographer, but he doesn't need to. And just watching them has been a really good example for me of like, I do not need to put on airs. I do not need to ensure that everybody likes me, and that everybody else is okay. How's your mental health? How's it I mean, I can't even tell you the amount of people that I used to text because friends, different places or whatever, because I'm like, well, I'm your friend that needs to be there for you. You're there for me because you come to my shows in Buffalo, New York, and you've always been. So I'm going to listen to you for the next 6 days, talk about your breakup. And even though I don't have the emotional space for it, I'm going to do it anyways. And it's funny to see after I wiped my like socials for a while. I left music for a while. I started doing photography full time. And it was funny to see who popped back up and was like, love the photography, hope you're well. And who just hasn't migrated like back to talking to me because I can't offer them things anymore. Right. I'm no longer the door daddy. I can't open doors for you anymore. I can, but I'm not going to anymore. Because even my therapist likes to use, but you were using the cup analogy, but my therapist uses the, you got to put your own face mask on before you can help other people put theirs on a plane if a plane's going down. Right. The same thing with a cup is like, if I'm constantly dumping my cup out to make sure, okay, you're good, you're full. And at the end of the day, I'm like, that's okay, because I'll fill it up. But then I repeat the process again. And, I've even taken that, we've taken that now with me and my wife, of like, like, hey, listen, I don't have the bandwidth this week to help out with this thing. My cup is very, very empty right now. My cup is dry. And that kind of symbiotic relationship is important with everybody that you're around you. They need to understand that. But a fan of your band, it's almost not even their fault, right? Because you're in a band. They go see you on stage. They listen to you. And you get them through their day. So whatever their thought of you is like, I think that more than anything, I've been made into like almost godlike than a villain, really. I've been made into a villain plenty of times, and, everybody's the villain in someone's story, right? But this like unrealistic like expectation so then if you do something where you have a real human moment, hey guys, I can't play music. I'm not going through a good time. I'm not well. I'm not this, that, the other. It's funny when I took that break, and I kind of came back, and not that I think you need to like announce you're taking a break on social media and all that kind of stuff, but I kind of like dipped out for a good year and a half. I got into a car accident. I was recovering. I couldn't even look at a phone. So what's the fucking point? It's funny because I came back and I made a post, and it was just like, hey, everybody, like, I guess this is the best way to address the general public. I'm a lot different than I used to be. I've gone through a lot. You all have. It's been a crazy couple of years, but I'm back here on this platform. I'm just not going to live a lot of my life on this platform. I hope you understand. I can't tell you the amount of messages from people that I got. They're like, oh my God, finally you're back. I've been going through a divorce, and just emotionally dumping on me, because that's what I set myself up to seem like, is I'm the guy in the band that helps, that cares, that does the mental health speaking. And during the pandemic, before the pandemic, I had walked away from mental health speaking because it was damaging my mental health, talking about the most traumatic experiences of my life for 6 hours every single day, school to school to school to school. I wasn't sleeping. I'm in hotels. I mean, I was drinking a bottle of wine a night just to go to bed. Like, and there's the thing. What am I doing this for when I am damaging everything inside of me? And then I'm getting on a stage and telling, college kids to, focus on their mental health and there's second chances for everybody. And everything I was saying is genuine, true, and all things that I did in my own life to get myself out of. But what am I doing now is I'm spreading myself like jelly, trying to travel everywhere to tell you to be okay. And I'm not okay, Mm-hmm. And it was funny taking a step back because, we set ourselves up on these, everyone has been given a camera and a television show and we said, you're important, go. And that's what we did. Right. So how could we get mad at people when I say I'm in a band that concentrates on mental health? And though I'm, maybe unattainable to talk to you every day, I care about you. You matter. You're loved. And I hope that you make it. Right. And then the back end of that is everybody all dumping their stuff on me, but I set myself to be up to that guy. Right. So I think I took a really big step back and was like, I created myself to be a brand, and a human being as a brand is unsustainable. I don't care what you do, what industry you're in. Your product needs to stand alone, right? So your product is, you have a great podcast. You have a couple great podcasts. My product was me, this person. I'm the product. I'm selling you my music. I'm selling you my motivational speaking. I'm selling you all of these things about myself. Not really selling, not at a price. No one's paying.
Right.
But I'm giving you all of this stuff. And then I'm sitting back and going, why am I so stressed out? Why am I spread so thin? Why is my mental health deteriorating? Why does nobody care about me? Because I'm up there going, I got you. We're good. I'm good. What's up? And I think that we're able to show pieces of our life, what we want. It's a highlight reel, right? We show the highlight reel of all this stuff, but people don't really know what's actually going on for real. Mm-hmm. And I hit a wall, and it was time for me to kind of hit that reset button. And it's great because now I have this like capacity for my friends, my community, my like real ones that I've never had before, right? It's almost like one of my friends was like, damn, healthy off the road Davey really is that friend that's going to be there and challenge you. And I'm like, that's right. I'm not really the ooh, that sucks friend. I can be, me and my wife have this thing that's, do you need help or do you need a hug? Right?
Yeah. Yep.
Do you need help or hug? Because sometimes you just need to be like, I just need you to tell me this sucks. Agree with me. Give me a fucking hug so I can cry. Right.
Yep.
And that's
just hear me.
Just hear me. Just hear me. Validate that you like heard my words, even if you don't believe in them, even if you think that what I'm doing, I just need you to hear me. So there is a lot of times where, and I had to also learn the difference between the two, sometimes it's like, go out with your buddy, you grab a beer, you play pool, you don't talk about the thing at all, but just that moment helps that person. Hey man, thanks for coming out with me tonight. I really needed that. So I've been working on this, like developing this language with everybody in my life. Do you need help or do you need a hug? If someone's like, I need a hug, I'm like, all right, if it's my wife, she's getting a hug right in the middle of the living room, If it's my buddy, I'm like, all right, dude, let's go out for a minute. Let's grab a beer. Let's grab a water. Let's grab coffee, whatever you do. And let's talk. Let me give you an emotional hug. If you need help, okay, well, I'm going to look at my Google Calendar. Next Thursday, I have 4 hours off in the afternoon. We're going to get after it, But I think that, humans are complex in that way. And sometimes we need a hug and sometimes we need help. Sometimes we need fucking both, man. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's the other thing too, is like I've kind of narrowed down my like, the people that are close to me, my circle, I have the friends that I have, and, there's the my inner circle, and then there's the I call them I can't claim this, but it's a little saying from my buddy in Maine. It's the God bless him people. We go, God bless that person. What a guy, hell of a guy, hell of a lady, hell of a person all day. We're maybe not the closest, but I love him. And then there's the God love him. God love them, not me. I ain't going to love them. God's going to love those people. So I got those people still in my life, but I think my core group of people I've really kind of like, and I've had to have conversations with all of them being like, here's what I need out of a friendship. I don't need you to kiss my ass. I do not need you to worship the ground that I walk on. I don't want any of that shit. I want some realness. I want help. I want hugs. I want the whole thing. Yeah. So it was a very, last couple of years has been a really vulnerable year for a lot of people. I feel like I've had very similar conversations to this, off camera with tons of people that have experienced, like, I went through this, now I'm here and I'm working towards this thing, I really hope that we get to find out later on in life that it is a simulation and it was a big old reset button. Everyone, they're like, sorry about that. We like spilled coffee. We spilled coffee on the console. Everything went to shit. Divorces happened, deaths. We're so sorry about that. Hope everyone's doing well.
Right. Yeah. Also, when we reset this, no one can have a podcast. We got to stop that right now. It was funny because like I of course, not slowing down, I started a podcast, obviously. And I had about like 10 episodes taped before but I had only released a couple. It was My Actual Dude, right?
Yeah.
I listened to it.
And dude, it's such great stories with some great human beings. I just knew enough people where I could sit down and be like, tell me about this, and then just let them go, Yeah. So who knows if that'll ever come back, but I even started that and I was like, who said that I had to do that? Like, who said I must? And it was that thing where it was like, I gotta grind. I gotta keep on going. I gotta do this thing. I can't stop. And my hope is that COVID has taught a lot of people to slow down, to check in on themselves, to make sure that let's not exceed the bandwidth, man, because you can't. It's literally just like internet bandwidth. You can't go past this point. If you do, guess what? Your system's frying down, buddy. You're shutting it down. It's over. That's what happens when you go too far. And just like you were saying, the universe sometimes is like, slow down. That's it.
100%.
Yeah.
And like something you were touching on earlier that kind of brings that back to is like the idea of like, while we are always growing and changing and evolving, there's always going to be a new problem that pops up. It's the video game analogy, right?
Yeah.
We get through this level, we gain all these new tools and understanding and experience points, but guess what? The next level that we break through to, we're excited for, there's a boss, there's new things that our old tools are going to be useful for, but we have to use them in new ways and then gain something new. Like, that's always going to change. There's always going to be a level up. And so like I think learning to embrace that and understand that like change is inevitable, right? We're always going to grow. So it's like, all right, cool. Let's embrace that, which I feel like a handful of years ago is when I like really learned that, where it was like, oh wait, there's always going to be something new around the corner. So how prepared am I for it? Or how willing am I to learn from this thing, right? But while we're always changing and evolving, we also have to figure out that balance. And that's an overused word, but it's the easiest one to explain it all with, is like the balance of making sure we're growing and challenging ourselves and evolving in however we want, but making sure we're not moving the goalpost. Like there's a difference between like playing different games and winning those games, but forever never letting yourself score in the game that you're in. And like, I think that's something that at least I feel like I'm gathering from your story, because I did the exact same thing. And I can relate to you on that, is like, it's the chase, it's the constant grind.
Yeah.
And I would never let myself get a win. Like I'd be excited in the moment, and then it would be, what's next? What do I have to do now? Oh my gosh. And we're just moving the goalpost, rather than like, there's nothing wrong with embracing new challenges or setting new goals. Absolutely do that.
But acknowledge what you just did.
Exactly. You have to acknowledge, and it's everything we've already said probably 100 times at this point, but like that acknowledgement comes from that slowing down, right? It's like, all right, cool. It's like if you watched, I'm not a big sports person, but like imagine if you watched a football team win a game and then they immediately just went to another field and played another game, and then immediately went to another, rather than going back to the locker room and talking about how they won or how they lost and what they need to do next time. There's some practice, and it's like, that might be a silly analogy, but like it's the same thing. It's like we have to learn to slow down a little bit. And I do think there is a way to continuously grow and evolve and be quote unquote working, while also being able to take those moments and work slowly and intelligently and all that sort of stuff, right? To be able to take those moments to slow ourselves down and say, I need to reevaluate a little bit, right? Because it all circles around everything that we've been talking about on the point of how do you feel? Are you actually fulfilled? Are you actually experiencing joy and happiness from the things that you're doing? Because something that I love about you is the fact that you have done so many different things. Now, for me, it's not just, oh, Davey, that's so cool, dude, you're so creative. For me, it's, wow, I'm seeing somebody else live life the way that I like to live life, right? Because since I left high school, knew that I didn't want a normal job, quote unquote normal job. Sure. And then I didn't set foot into like, I'm going to be in the film world, or I'm going to be in the photography world, or anything like that. There was no like, I'm going to do this. It was just, I want to be whatever I want to be. And I don't necessarily know how I'm going to get there, but I'm just going to go, and then I'm going to learn as I go. Right. To where now I can sit and I can have this life that's been developed by myself of, if I want to have 97 podcasts, I can do that. If I want to do my own passion project, short films, I can do that. Client work in video, photography, social media, like whatever it is I want to do, I have the space and time to do that. Now I can sit and say, well, I know I have the space, I know I have the time, and I know I have the bandwidth, just like we've been talking about.
Right.
However, for a few years, like I also wasn't really good at that balance, because I was just chasing it. It was, and like that sounds cool of like, oh, well, yeah, you're getting after your goals. There's nothing wrong with that.
And people will say that while you're doing it. People will say that, and they'll like, okay, I'm going to keep on going.
Cool, yeah.
But
exactly. And so it's like, it took me years of kind of being burnout already and running on E, but being like, well, no, this is what I'm supposed to do. And this is what I have to do. Where now I can sit, because it's almost one of my favorite conversations to have with people now is because I do oddly get asked relatively often by fellow creative friends or just people who don't do anything creative at all. And they're just curious. They will ask, like, Ross, like, how and why do you do so many things, right?
Yeah, that's
you're not just a video director. You're not just a photographer. Like, you're not just a podcaster. You've been doing all these different things for the last decade of your life. I don't understand how you do all of them. Mm-hmm. And my answer is because I understand why I do them. Yeah. I understand why I want to do them. And I didn't for the longest time. I was just luckily putting in the work and the grind in doing them. So, hey, that is the example of, yes, hard work pays off. But at some point we have to learn how to maintain that. It's not just achieving it, it's learning to maintain it at some point.
Right. How can it be sustainable? How can the dream chasing? Because there's I think I don't want anybody to get either of us wrong. I don't think that chasing your dreams is the wrong thing. I think it's the correct thing to do fucking always, every time. You could fail at something you fucking hate. So try something you love. Who cares? But you're right. It's that balance. It's that, checking back in with yourself. Like, why am I doing this? Is it still fulfilling me? Is it still making my cup overflow? Do I have the space to do other things? I think that in a creative world, because that's the number one sentence I've heard. I'm sure you heard your whole life is, how do you do all these things? Like, I don't know how to do anything else, so I'm not going to.
Right.
But
right.
I think a lot of times when that does happen, those are probably times we weren't checking in on ourselves, right? Those were times that we were just flying by the seat of our pants, being like, not really sure. And that's okay for sometimes, but the sustainability of, I want to do this for forever. I want to have multiple like streams of passion and influence and ownership and whatever, you know what I mean? So it's like, how do you do that? And that's by checking in with yourself. That's by, taking some breaks when you need to, stepping away from something, even though it might be so unheard of for you to step away from that. Why are you on the road? I don't know. It's because what I do. What would that look like if you didn't do that? What other things could you put time, effort, passion, space, into if you didn't do that for a little while? I was going to say earlier, as you were talking, the number one way that I do that is this. I write down everything and constantly drawing pictures. This is my life force, self, how I care about myself, how I care about other people, how I care about my body. There's just like lots of tools that I use because I'm a person that if I don't have this in my hand, it's out of sight, out of mind, right?
Yeah,
But I force myself to carry, it's all beaten up, this crappy little notebook, even if I just write down like, today sucked and here's why. I double booked myself on a shoot. I thought I could handle it. The first client was late. The second client was early. It's unprofessional of me. And that is the only way that I can go, oh shit, I feel like I ran into this before. And I go, yep, I have. And what do I do here? Okay, this. Because It's almost like dummy proofing your own life, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's the same reason why we set alarms. It's the same reason you have a notes app, is because there are tools that you can learn, but you have to like work at it and keep it up and keep it going. You know what I mean? Yep. Because people like us will forget, right? Like you'll work on yourself. I'm feeling good. My bandwidth is here. Let's grind. You'll grind and grind and grind and grind and grind. And then you'll almost ride off. I was talking to someone else the other day. Success in this manner of like creative success, for people like us, it's a drug. It's a drug and we constantly chase that high. I have never done a drug that has made me feel like the way that I feel when I'm like playing a show on a stage and people are going off. Same thing with like when I'm doing a photo shoot and I'm like, this shit's going to be crazy. Like this is like, the career maker ones where you look at a shot and you're like, I can't believe I fucking got that. Right. There's no greater feeling than that. So we're constantly chasing this like dopamine hit that's like unrealistic, because it's not going to always be like that. Mm-hmm. And you chase it. And those times where you can't find it, that's where you start questioning, like, what am I doing? Why am I here? And that's when you sort of have the breakdown. If you have the balance, as you were saying, and yeah, there is no better word for it. It's the yin and yang of like, how do I, every individual thing has a yin and yang, and how do I balance those aspects together and balance them out. And I think that's really the only way to be sustainable. I'll say in the creative field, because it's the only field I really know about. How do you stay? You have to check in with yourself. You have to find a balance of work, of passion, of play. You have to, use the tools that you remember you have to continue to safeguard yourself to being, because I want to do this forever. I want to take photos until my decrepit 100-year-old finger can't push down anymore. I want to sing songs until I run out of breath and I don't have anything left. But the only way to do that is to do it in a sustainable, balanced manner. It's meaning I feel like it's set up from like an early age, right? Every rock star that you love is dead, right? They're all dead. They've all burnt out. They all killed themselves or overdosed or whatever. And their legend will live on and their music will live on. You're like, man, Nirvana, huge, inspirational band. I was a 90s kid. That was the wave I was riding. But that motherfucker's dead. And for a while, he was like a hero of mine. And I'm like, a dead guy is my hero. That's, you know what I mean? Like, and not saying that he didn't have a balance, passing no judgment. Please don't come for me in any sort of comments about Kurt Cobain. But what I'm saying is that I idolize people who couldn't balance it out. I grew up with, my family, my birth family couldn't balance it out, had to give me up. Like I grew up with this imbalance so much to the point where I let it creep into my own life because of like, I idealized these things of being in a band and doing all this stuff. And, it's a big step to take a step back and reassess where you're at, in your career, because like you said, like we've said a few times, this creative world, music, art, photography, videography, it's what are you doing next? What's the next thing? And if you have lag time, if you don't post on Instagram in 4 weeks, well, then there's no followers there for you and no one's seeing your shit. And then it's like, well, then I'm fighting myself eternally. Like, am I making photos to post on Instagram, or is that why I'm doing it? Or am I doing it because it's fulfilling to me? I'm making money. Like, what is it's really hard to navigate these waters. Listen, I'm a person that therapy has worked for me since day one. And I'm glad that I've been able to kind of like, again, get my tools, have my apps and my things, because then I am able to kind of strike a balance with that. Even recently, I've been kind of unfulfilled I have my job that I work for and I do, and I hold that very sacred. But my freelance, I felt a little dry recently. I felt like, okay, like, no offense there's a group of models I work with that I adore working with. They're incredible. They're great. I kind of rotate the same amount of them, but I'm like, I got a gig and I shot this hot person and they were really hot in the thing that I shot and the pictures were hot and they were cool. Is that it? Was that where I'm coming from? Was that the reason? You know what I mean?
The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
Oh, excuse me. Hopping in here real quick to tell you about a brand new sponsor for the show, Ope Cold Brew. It's cold brew that uses naturally processed ingredients with no preservatives or additives and roasted right here in Columbus. And guess what? You can get Ope delivered right to your door every Friday if you live in Columbus. Or you can do weekly or bi-weekly subscriptions, and if you do subscribe, you save 10%. Otherwise, they have 4 packs available for $20. So if you want to find out more, follow them at Ope Cold Brew or visit opecoldbrew.com to grab a 4-pack or set up your subscription. Ope, it's dang good cold brew.
So yeah, I think that it just comes with a great balance. Like you really, really need to be to stay balanced to do this. And you know how a lot of what I've been doing recently, and this is kind of coming full circle to here, I've been listening to podcasts because people like you are able to sit down with people like me. And I'm hearing this from other, and I'm like, okay, everyone's kind of going through this together. And I think that is kind of been my takeaway, is that whether I agree with you on religious things, political things, none of that shit matters. What matters is that we're all going through all of this together. So no matter what you are as a creative, linking with another creative and just talking to them about how you feel about stuff is so beneficial. You play soccer, you play semi-pro soccer, and you're traveling around the world and you feel isolated and alone. Find another semi-pro fucking soccer player and ask him if he's ever felt alone or isolated. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're a paralegal. Find another paralegal somewhere on the internet and talk to them about the stresses of your job, because the most important thing is to realize that A, you are not alone. And B, people have overcome this before, so you can too. Because it's a scary notion, like we said in the beginning. Like, what am I if I'm not a band guy? If I'm not Davey from Vanna, what the fuck am I? And honestly, like, if you're not Ross from the one of the million podcasts you do, who are you, right? And that could be so polarizing because we put so much of our efforts into our identity. Because I mean, look at our Instagram bio. Well, here's the 6 things you need to know about me right off the rip, right? Here it is. But I'm so much more than that. You're so much more than that. You can't put that into a bio. But there's something about, I've been reading, my roommate and I were actually talking about this article about how TikTok has changed the brains of people under the age of 21. So their attention spans it's almost not their fault. They can't sit through a 5-minute instructional video in class anymore. 30 seconds, kids want to swipe up, go, no, oh, cool, no, oh, cool, no. And it's not their fault. It's this world that we've gotten into, right? And there's something to be said, and, you know, reading all these articles, if it's scary and true, is like, we are starting reducing ourselves to the ideas, these they call them like, the article is like link in bio, and it was talking about how we have reduced ourselves to basically everything about our personality is in our biographies online, and that we are constantly living to prove I'm a photographer, to prove I'm a musician, and nothing else. We're not talking about the fact that, like, oh, I actually work at, not me, but like, I actually work at the post office, or, oh, I work a retail job, but I don't show that because that's not famous. That's not influential. Oh, I'm actually a plumber. Well, I didn't even fucking know that you were a plumber. You know what? I'd probably rather you post some plumber shit. You know what I mean? Maybe be helpful to me. I just bought a new house. I want to know, but I don't know that. So it's funny because there's a lot of people that, you know, I have this, you know, I recently started a guys club, I don't know, all the girls hang out all the time. And I'm like, I found myself like, it's hard to make friends in your 30s, right? It's pretty hard to do. Mm-hmm. But men's especially, like, there's this like thing that, like, I have, you know, like 5 best friends and they don't live here, right? They all live in different parts of the world, and they're my guys, and I can and we're on a group chat. But having that in person, so I sort of kind of took the reins and was just starting to be like, okay, here's this group of like 6 dudes who are like the husbands of my wife's friends, who I'm also friends with. I've asked a couple to be in my band, so a couple of them are playing in Hematite now. We started going out and going to play pool. Like, most of them are sober. So I'm like, going and getting a drink that's a phrase. We don't have to, you know what I mean? And I've started this thing, and I realized that some of these guys, I'll say something and I'll get their credit card right from the bar. Hey, I'm going to close up for my buddy. And I'm looking, I'm like, that's your last name? We don't even know each other's fucking last names. I thought your last name was what your Instagram name was. Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. Or you sit down and go, hey, man, I realize I've known you for 4 years. What do you do for a living? I don't even know what you fucking do for a living, you know? It's this thing where we've kind of just become our profiles. We've just become these things. And it takes, and I'm guilty of it. The only reason and anything I say on this podcast, I'm fucking guilty of it all. You know, I've done it. I only know because I've done it, you know? Right. And so we become these, like, you know, we become 160 characters of who we really are. And that then affects our psyche and how we look at relationships, how we look, you know, how many divorces were there during COVID? You know what I mean? Like, it just was, you know, that took some time for everybody to self-reflect, to take inventory, to go, what's important, what's not important, what do I need in my life, what do I not need in my life? I don't know if that was everybody's experience, but like you said, it was your experience, it was my experience, it was several of my friends' experiences. And I'm hoping that everyone's getting a little bit more clarity and can live, because guess what? The internet, this is the greatest time to be alive ever. Because people get like, they romanticize like, oh, I wish I was living in France in the 1400s. And I'm like, you would die at 35 years old. You'd be poor as fuck. You wouldn't like, oh, I wish I could be in the medieval times. I'm like, there was no sewage then. You'd be living in shit. Like
if you sneezed, you'd be burned at the stake. What do you do?
Oh my God forbid you were not straight. Like, you know what I mean? Like all these things. So listen, we're alive in the best time that there is. But right now, we are a race of human beings that have the most and do the least amount with it, you know? And it's like, it's the same thing as like, I had a friend who got upset because our friend group wasn't sharing infographics about something specific going on in the world. And I'm like, yeah, but in the next like re-story, you're storying a meme about Pedro Pascal being daddy. Like this is not, we have taken the internet and we said, this is important. It's not fucking important. So everything's there. So it's up to us to like find that balance. And, you know, my wife doesn't have social media. It's fucking wonderful. I envy her sometimes because, she has a lot of times I'm like, hey, have you seen this? And she's like, how would I have seen that? She has a secret TikTok. So that's all so she can like, whatever. But I found she struck a balance with it enough where she can have a TikTok and look at it and put it away. And it's really affected me. You know, I've worked with a lot of people. I worked in for a motorcycle apparel company, and a lot of the dudes I met through the motorcycle world was like, I don't even have I have a flip phone. And I'm like, bless you. You are truly living God's plan. That is incredible. But there is a balance. There's, we don't have to be a slave to stuff like this. There is a balance that you need to, and I think that leaving the music industry and then coming back to music has really taught me a lot of lessons within that. And I've been applying to like all things in my life, creating boundaries with myself and things that are healthy for me, but in doses, right? And in time. The other thing is like, I've been getting older and I haven't really thought about getting older at all. And then the last couple of years, like I'm 38, not that old. I'm like Seinfeld age. I'm like the age that Seinfeld characters were when they were on TV. It's not that old, but there's more of it's less of like a short-term game now, and it's more of longevity based. Like, well, I want to be healthy forever. So I've changed the workout routine. So it's maybe less heavy lifting and more cardio and yoga, because I want to be able to stand up off my couch until the day I die. Right. And, so it's like, I live in a time where all the information on how to be healthy is right in front of me. Let's research it. Let's do it. And let's get it going. That's something that's like using this resource in a very good way. There's times to use it. The internet is a good resource. There's times to laugh hysterically at some stupid video. And there's a time to put down your phone and live in real life. Live in go put your head, like right now, all I want to do is nuzzle my cat that's laying on my bed right now. Like for half an hour, put your phone down and go stick your head in your animal's face. You know what I mean? Yeah. Go do anything, unplug, but then go back to it. It's a healthier way to live, and it really does affect everything you do, especially being a creative. It's like, I always have to be making something. It's like, you feel bad for being lazy. You ever feel guilty for being lazy? You ever sit around and and you're sitting there at your house and you're like, I'm not doing shit today. And you're sitting there and you're like, I should do something. Should I do something? Oh my God, it's so nice out in Portland, especially. The sun's out, right? So you're like, you feel double guilty in the wintertime that you're not I should be up shooting right now. I should be out shooting something right now, right? But I just shot for 20 hours this week.
Well, also when it's that nice day out and you see someone else post that they're outside on a walk in the nice day, you're like, what am I doing? I'm so tired. It's like, no, dude, that's not it. Like
we have been made to feel bad about being capitalism has, and listen, we're never going to, I'm not ordering off of Amazon and not going to change. Listen, capitalism is ingrained here. It is here to stay. We're going to die this way. That's it. So you have to take your personal convictions in your life. I think politics are personal and they should be in your personal. How you maintain yourself and what you do is how you live your personal politics, right? that's just like how things should be. But oh man, I just lost my train of, oh yeah. I see somebody outside like, oh man, beautiful day out. So God's the sun out. And they're like, grrr. I'm like, it should be, but I'm on my couch. But why am I on my couch with my dog and my wife? Because I worked 40 hours this week shooting something else I was just in a dark studio when I wasn't outside. So like, and then there's also the thing of like, okay, if I want to get up off this couch and I want to go outside and shoot, this has to be for beauty, for passion, and for the love of photography, not because I think I'm going to post something. Right. And then I go, okay, I'm going to get up. Hey babe, it's going to be, we got like 7 hours left this daylight. You want to go somewhere? And I'll take my camera and maybe I'll take it out of the car. Maybe I won't. But then there's also that option of I worked for 40 hours this week. I earned this fucking time. You know what?
Yep.
Open the shades, let that sun hit me while I play Fortnite. Like I earned this shit, dude.
That's something that I've seen it be posted, around around social media, of just like posts that are saying like, let yourself be bored.
Yes.
Like, we have to learn to be bored again, because it's so easy to not be bored, which is amazing. And that's incredible. But it's like, whether it's being bored or being lazy or just resting. It's just resting, bro. It's just resting. It's like, it's funny. Cause like I'll, my guys at my company are a little bit older than me. And a little bit like, just kind of different walk of life. And what did you get into this weekend? I'm like, I had 2 shoots booked this weekend. So Saturday, me and the wife drove out to here and then we did this shoot. It was cool because we got like lunch. And I'm telling them all this shit. I'm like, what'd you do? And they're like, nothing. It's the weekend. And I'm like, yeah. No, I get it. So recently for me, it's been like, my wife is, I could do a whole podcast just about my wife. My wife is so good at being at resting. She's so fucking good at it. She doesn't really have that guilt. Like she doesn't have that like, and she's somewhat of a creative too. She works with me on the media company and she like, it's cool to be able to go out in the sun and shoot some stuff with her and stuff, but it's like cold out. And she's like, no, I'm not leaving. I have sweatpants on. I'm not leaving. I'm playing Sims for the next 19 hours, that's what I'm doing. So she's been really good for me to do that. Just sit around and like, I'll be standing up and she'll be like, what's up? And I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like, and she's like, sit down, just chill. Don't do anything. I did the same thing. Like, so about 2 years ago, I started getting like a gym routine and like, good. I started going, a couple times a week, then it was like 3 times a week, pretty structured. And then I was like, okay, yeah, I want to bump this up even more. And then it was like Monday through Friday. And then I found myself leaning into like Monday through Saturday and some Sundays. And then if I wouldn't go on the weekends, I was like, what am I doing? I need to go. And I was like, wait, no. That's not what this is for. And like, there would be other gym goers who were like, dude, why are you going every single day? Like no judgment, but like
take a rest,
take some rest days. Like it's fine. And so like, that was even another thing, like a thing that is healthy for me and good for me. I started to enjoy so much, which is great. And I started to feel all the positive effects of that. But I was like, I have to keep going. I have to get more and more. And it was like, no, dude, just take the weekend off. It's cool. Yeah. Monday through Friday is more than you were doing for the last decade. So like you're good.
Dude, we're same in that. I did the exact same thing. I got into fitness and like for a couple years it was like 5 days a week.
Right.
I'm like,
right.
Isn't this to feel good? I feel terrible. I feel bad.
It's moving the goalpost. The goalpost was I need to go to the gym so I can get in better shape and feel better about myself and just feel better in general. Boom. We achieved that. And then we're like, okay, but I don't go to the gym enough. Okay. And then we have to go more. And then it's like, so it's like that. Yeah. That is one example of like, and even all the stuff we've been talking about with social media, with friendships and relationships and creative endeavors and all that sort of stuff. Like you're preaching to the choir in the sense of like the last handful of years, I've been on all of those journeys to find that balance. And now I sit as a very like comfortable and confident individual with all of those things. Doesn't mean I have them perfectly under control, but that's why I love having conversations like this and hearing, that other people have experienced those things and their perspectives and everything that they've experienced. Is like, I can sit and be like, oh yeah, okay, I wasn't insane for experiencing that. I wasn't insane for going through that or thinking that it was wrong or right or, whatever, putting the work in. But it's like, I can sit now and like one of my like, 2 things that I love the idea of is like, one, who are you when no one else is around? And then who are you without the internet? And it's like that idea of like when you are just you, right? When we're not trying to entertain a room of people or be a good host or be a good friend or be there for somebody, who are you? Who can you identify that you are? Not like, oh, I'm somebody who's resting, but like, no. On that kind of existential level, who are you? What do you really enjoy, right? Do you enjoy being a funny person, or are you funny to try and entertain the room? Like those are two different things, right? And then of course, everything we're talking about with social media that everyone is trapped within. And I definitely got for a few years caught in like, I wanted to be the trendiest photographer and videographer person ever. You know, I was trying to take, I did live photography for a little bit, and I wanted all the coolest live shots of the band. So everybody thought it was cool. Like I did that. Now I did it because I enjoyed doing those things, but it quickly it went to the track of how many likes did it get? Did people like this? And so now I can sit and be like, well, do I still like doing the things that I enjoy when there's nowhere to put it, when there's no one else to show it to? Like if this podcast didn't exist and you were in Columbus or I was in Portland and we were sitting down getting coffee, I guarantee you we would be having this exact same conversation.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think that's why I like podcasts so much.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, I can identify, like, I don't create for the internet. I don't tell stories for the internet. Like you said something earlier that actually sparked this thought. And I don't remember what it was, but I'm bringing it back of like, the idea of identifying like what we are outside of our creations. And for me, it's like, I can identify two major things about myself, which is why I feel like I have such a comfort with who I am and why I do all the things I do, is because I can track it back to, I love storytelling in any form. Verbal like this, visual in a photo or a video or a design or whatever, storytelling of any element I love. And also I simply love connecting and helping people. So that doesn't mean that I'm going to go out of my way and drain myself, like we talked about, that we have both experienced before, of like, oh my God, I have to be there for somebody. It's more so like I get to, right? And I know that I have the capacity in me, because I care about that, to get to be there for them.
It's like a privilege.
Yes. And so it's like, because of that, I feel like I've been able to almost reverse engineer my life. And it goes back to the fulfillment thing we were saying earlier, and like the knowing when to say yes and no to certain things and all that sort of stuff. I can identify those like sort of filters, quote unquote, that I'm going to put everything through. Right. It's like, hey, yeah, does this fulfill my storytelling element? Does this fulfill I just get to connect with a human being on like a cool level, whether I don't care if this meeting I'm having over coffee turns into a client or not. I got to connect with this person, and hopefully they were a good person. It was a good conversation and we make a good connection. I don't care if they hire me for something or not. Right. And so like, I think understanding that why, and maybe this is a big term to use, but it's the best way I can describe it, is like, I truly feel like in the last, I would say 2 years, I have been able to firmly uncover what I feel like my purpose is. And it's not one singular thing. My purpose is not to go and make the next most awesome horror movie ever. Love doing that. Love making horror shorts and all that sort of stuff. It'd be awesome. But that is just a thing on the list that I get to experience. And it's an amazing thing, right? My purpose is not to just do a podcast or just take a photo or whatever. My purpose is the connection. My purpose is the storytelling. And like, that's something I always like love to share with people, is like, try to identify that why. And it doesn't have to be some magical thing like, I'm here to save the world.
It could be simple.
It could be simple. But what can you identify that as? Like, again, strip everything away. Who are you when no one else is around? What do you like? What do you want to do? What do you dislike? And try to feed into that. Try to like, it's a silly saying, but ever since I heard it, I was like, you know what, that's pretty good. But the idea is, not to always just let things happen to you, but you go and happen to things.
Ooh, I'm going to steal that. I like that.
And so what that means to me is, rather than looking at, oh my God, I have to go be a photographer, I have to be cool on social media, I have to be a podcaster. It's more so I get to be these things because they're an extension of who I am. So now I'm doing it. It is now an extension of me that I am putting out. It's not a thing that I'm consuming and embracing the identity of and then completely changing myself, just like everything we've been talking about, right? I'm not walking around like, just because I do a few podcasts, I'm not necessarily like, yes, I am a podcaster, I'm a podcast producer. That's a thing on the list. but that's not the only thing that I'm going to identify.
It doesn't identify you wholly and completely. And it's when we let those things singularly identify us is when we get into trouble, right? I'm sure that a little bit of your thought process has been, well, I am this, I am also this, and you can have multi-facets to your life. I think I had to do the same thing coming back from touring. It was important to my therapist that we like sat down and was like, let's unpack touring. Let's talk about it. Have you ever talked about it before? And I'm like, no, only to my wife, really. And I've been able to go back now and have such a peace about what I did, where I was, how I did it, and identify the times that were maybe a little bit of a stretch of who I was and my boundaries, but that like I can identify those times. If I was doing it, like that was like, I'm very connection based like you are. Also, I think photography is like, I tell everybody that hires me for something. I'm like, did you look at my work? You're going to get something like, I want your eyes to tell me a story when I'm shooting. I'm going to get close. We're going to get up there. Honestly, fuck where we are and what you're wearing. And like, I'm here because I need, and I'll put a set of photos up and I'll look at them real quick and I'll decide what music goes along to edit those photos. And because I want to tell the whole story. What is this scene telling us? That's why I started recently getting into more of like, I made some music videos. I'm like, my dream is to make a movie. I don't have a crew or anything, so it'd be just me making it. And that's not going to stop me in any way, but storytelling is huge. I love storytelling. And that's what I'm finding also is that I'm writing a book. I don't know what it's going to look like or why, but I have a friend who is basically like a book doctor. She puts together books for people and then gets them publishing deals.
That's so sick.
So, I told her a lot of my stories. I have like, countless stories. Her husband and I are really good friends. He's got even more psychotic stories of growing up than I do. And he's writing a book and he was like, dude, man to man, like, it's helpful. Writing this book has really started to help me sort through things. So I told my therapist that and she was like, write a fucking book. Like, who cares where it goes, right? Just like the Hematite stuff. I had to promise myself, who cares where it goes? Just do it because I want to do it. So I'm writing this book now, and that's what I'm realizing. It's just a collection of short stories chronologically. And what I'm realizing is that every story that I have was based off of me trying to create a connection. Or maintain a connection or sever a connection, right? And that's sort of like what, obviously this is what you've touched on, this is what you do, but I think as creatives, like that's kind of what we do. There's a common thread between photography, videography, podcasts, music. There's a common thread between that, and that is storytelling. It is getting something out of your soul and onto paper, onto video, onto streaming, whatever the medium is. But getting it out is that's the whole thing, right? Telling it. I had this idea for a podcast. I don't want to say the name because I don't want anyone to steal it, but it's quite honestly people anonymously sending me stories, which I already have a bunch of them, and then just getting people with nice voices to read them like as their own. It's basically just like talking to a brick wall, because as humans, and that's why like I started traveling a couple of years ago, and I did it for like 6-8 years, traveling around, speaking at colleges and high schools and stuff, telling my story. Because when you hear something and you go, fuck, that's me. What did he do? Okay, I'm not going to do exactly that, but there's like little tools and adjustments and things. Okay, he went to therapy, he did that. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to maybe try some of this stuff. Having this, this connection one-on-one. If you texted me when this was over and you said, we didn't get any of it, we got none of that, we didn't record any of it, I'm so sorry. I already have so much up here just from this conversation that I need to write down because of things that you've phrased things in ways that I haven't heard, or I haven't phrased things. But for some reason you frame it in a way and I'm like, that's the vocabulary I needed for me to feel like I'm okay. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think that we're kind of on the same pages there. And I think that, kind of to tie this in a little bit, the internet is adding to that connection, but also taking that connection away. We are more connected and also further disconnected than we've ever been, because it is so easy to go, I'll watch, if I want to, I'll Google podcast about, who knows, an electrician that almost died on the job, and I'll find 45 stories about, but because I will find 45 stories about it. I'm like, oh, it's a ton of them. I probably won't even listen to. You know what I mean? Because there's so much connection there. So you have to fight that. Again, it's the balance, right? Of using these tools and being part of the best generation to ever fucking live on this earth, using those tools appropriately so that they do not affect you in a negative way, so that you do not have to take a step back. You do not need a cleansing. You don't need a, oh, I'm not doing any social media for a month. And listen, that's okay. Do that whenever you need to, if that is how you need to like strike your balance. But it's important for longevity if you're going to want to do anything. And I would even say this, if you enjoy flipping through your phone and looking at pictures and photos and videos, and you enjoy social media and all that stuff, I would say even more so for you, even if you're not a creator, please come up with a way to balance that out in your life of putting your phone away and doing something in real life. Like literally, like, it's frustrating to me. And another thing that I fight within saying this is becoming an old curmudgeon-y guy. That's like, the kids today don't understand. Listen, one of the things that really like upsets me is like joking, like memes about like, I'll be fine. I just need to go touch grass and stuff like that. Or like, oh, I don't have a mental issue. The sun was just gone. Listen,
right.
Yes, but actually instead of posting that meme, go outside, take your shoes off and stand in grass, because that's a joke, because standing in grass actually like just barefoot to the earth. Yes. You're doing something that is fucking beyond you, beyond me, beyond every living thing in this world. You're connecting with the thing that is like giving us life, right? When you stand outside and you do this in the sun, you're like, oh my fucking God. There's a reason for that. Yep. There's a reason that when you swim in water and you're like, oh my God, this is you're 70% water floating in other water. Like there's a reason why these life elements are so good to us. But when we make a joke about them and we don't actually go do the thing, that's the problem. That's the unbalance. That's when it's not there. So like, if you're listening to this podcast right now, take your shoes off and go stand outside in the grass, man. I'm going to do it after this. I'm going to kick my Crocs off. I'm going to go stand outside with my dog, and I'm just going to stand in my backyard and look at the sun, because that's the great balance that we need. Because if you do that, you can then jump back on this tiny rectangle and do the work that you need. And maybe you'll be outside and you'll be inspired. Oh my God, I'm going to shoot this thing. I'm going to do this thing because I just saw whatever the fuck outside. That's real inspiration. That's where it all comes from. So
dude, that was one of my pandemic things is, I started going on walks. I was like, okay, nothing else to do. All right, cool. We're allowed to go outside. I'm going to go to, there was conveniently I had a roommate at the time, and we found out that there was a park hidden on literally the other side of the road from where our apartment was. So it was like this 2-mile like loop with, all these trees and ponds and all this sort of stuff. So that became our thing. Right. And during that time, I kept up with the walks and all that sort of stuff. And, would just walk around and listen to music or a podcast or like a movie score, just sort of walk around. Right. And I was just doing it just to stay active, just to do something. But the amount of inspiration that came from kind of doing nothing was like the amount of ideas. Like I'd be walking and I'd be like, whoa. And I would think of this entire movie idea or short or whatever it is. So I would pull out my notes app real quick, boom, note this down, and then phone back in pocket and keep going.
And there it is.
I would let myself go back into the imagination. I would make sure I noted it down so I didn't forget. But then I would continue to think about it and just continue my walk and just kind of be kind of in another world for a little bit. But you're 100% right of like, I wasn't walking around like looking at my phone, like 5 tips on how to be creative when you're outside. Like, like that wasn't happening. Like I was just phone in pocket, just listening to something, getting kind of lost, just looking around, whatever. But inspiration came from that.
And that's when the inspiration is going to come, is when you're allowing yourself, when you're at rest, right? When you're allowing this to shut off for a minute, and shut off in the way of like, not trying to constantly think, what's the next shot? What's the next move? And you're walking around and you're almost like, especially if you're listening to music, you're almost like the main character in your own movie at that moment, right?
Totally.
And there's a reason why art imitates life. There's a reason why there's movies where the guy goes and he sits and he sketches near the lake and he goes, oh my God, I found the answer to my problem. Because you're allowing your body to to answer problems because you are now at rest. Your brain
Giving
is at
yourself
rest.
Space.
Exactly. Giving yourself space to be a human, hear ducks, hear cars driving by, smell the air. Like, these are things that I have people in my life now that are, COVID is, again, I keep on going back to it, but this is a thing here, right? Like, you discovered these walks during COVID. COVID's also had like an effect on people where they're afraid to go outside. It's almost like I don't know how to socialize. There's been tons of articles and studies done recently about like humans like post-COVID socialization and people don't know how to act and all this other stuff. And I think that for a lot of people during that time, they were attached to their phones, they were attached to their computers, they were attached to their Zooms, they were attached to what they had to do. And it lasted so long that everybody ended up having I went outside phase to walk around. And it's amazing what I've like heard from those phases. Like, even I had those phases with me and my wife started running. We're like, okay, well, I guess we'll run. And I'd run and we'd run for half an hour and I'd get back to the house. And I'd be like, I'd take the headphones out. She's like, how was your run? I'm like, I thought of 1,000 things to write about, to shoot, to whatever. Yeah. And that's where the inspiration comes. But you have to allow yourself that time, because listen, I'm a guy who has, you can't see it, but on the back of my neck, I have the word grind tattooed. Not because it's my favorite movie, rollerblading movie from the 90s, but because I was on a tour where that was like the thing. It was like, find your grind. Mm-hmm. And at the time, find your grind to us just meant what's the thing that you love? Find it, find your passion, do your thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's now since taken on such a different meaning in the world, right? Of find your grind. What's the thing that you will not stop doing? And taking that break, and taking that time really afforded a lot, Hematite and these lyrics and these words and the stuff that all came from taking a break from music, taking a break from things, playing fucking video games. You know what I mean? Me and my wife really got into cooking together and learning kind of that kind of stuff, a lot of the same stuff. But then that opens up. There's a reason right now why you're seeing so many bands, new records, and all this creative stuff is happening, is because some people really did learn the balance. They got they took a break, they took the rest, and they got the creative inspiration they needed to then do it again. For me, I go, okay, let's write it down in the notebook, take a rest, do the thing, whatever. So then I can go, I'm feeling drained right now. I'm feeling like I'm putting up photos for likes. And then when they're not getting them, I'm going, what's going on? I got mad the other day because I found out there's terms and conditions, right? But then there's also suggested terms for creators on Instagram. And I had a penalty for, I don't know, showing a woman's leg or something fucking ridiculous.
Oh, how dare you? Oh,
right. Exactly. Good Lord. But I cleared it and I took the post off and I texted the model and she was like, yeah, I know, I got some stuff deleted recently. And I was on this fucking rant in my living room and I realized that the people, they're not listening to me. And I'm like, oh, this isn't important. Me getting some stupid thing, violation. And I instantly just stopped talking. And my wife and best friend that live here just kept on, didn't say anything. And I was like, right, that wasn't important. You know what I mean? That's not fucking important.
Right.
Now had I brought up this photo shoot and been like, yo, look at this photos that I did, they both would have been like, oh, let me see. Oh my God, it's me, whatever. But I was complaining about something that was so fucking stupid that no one cared about anyways. And then it immediately made me be like, what am I doing?
Yeah,
Yeah. And that I took that, and that was a couple of days ago. And I have just kind of chilled, done my normal work, and haven't done any freelance photography stuff. And in the last couple of days, since I've just chilled, the inspiration is unbelievable, to the point where I have a photo shoot this weekend and we completely changed everything about it because we both got some inspo. And I was like, hey, I just took some time to myself and I just was thinking about all these things in my head. Then I went online to find reference photos and I sent it and she's like, I love this. And now this shoot's going to be fucking amazing because I took this week to just not do shit.
Yeah.
And
it's the slowdown
it's
thing.
Beautiful.
Why, some of the main places or times that I think we all come up with all of our ideas, and you see the memes online of oh, I decided last night at 3 a.m. that I'm going to redo my entire life tomorrow morning. Right. Because we think of these things when we're not doing anything else. When you're laying in bed trying to go to sleep, all the stuff hits you. When you're in the shower, you get the shower thoughts, all the stuff hits you. When you're on a long drive and there's not really a lot to do other than maybe listen to music or a podcast, maybe you don't have anybody with you in the car, like those sort of things, like that's when all of that's going to hit, because we are slowing down. There's not 100 different things happening. That's why, like, and it does it, like, it hits me so hard. I'm purchasing this. Have you ever heard of like a shower thoughts notepad?
Yes. Yeah.
So like, I'm literally going to buy one of those, because the amount of times when I'm in the shower and like an idea hits and I'm like, I might forget that. So I need to like literally just to jot it down on this like stupid little waterproof pad. But like, because it's in those moments, like there are so many creative ideas that have come from those sort of things. And it's like inspiration can't hit at weird times. Although I also do believe that inspiration comes from action. I do think that like when we do take action to do something is often like, rather than waiting for the moment of inspiration, we can kind of kickstart it a little bit. Yeah. You create your own. Of course. And like, but that also doesn't negate the fact that like when we're sitting and we're resting and we're just giving space to these things, they're also going to pop up. They're also going to. I mean, you can look at it like this: they're waiting for that space to be made, right? Right. You got a rectangle idea right here, right? But you're not making space for a rectangle to get in there. So eventually, you got to make a lot of space, sit down, and then it's all of a sudden it's like boom. You're like, oh shit, yeah, that's what it is. I think like like there's something to be said, like you said, during action. Like there's relate on like music videos, like making a music video, and then. They do something and I'm like, cut. Yes, that was fucking I didn't even think about that. Do that thing. But I got the entire idea for the treatment of the video and everything else while I was on a 2-hour drive or while I was in the shower. I was like, oh shit. Oh my God. Yes. That's because when you shut it off is when it actually turns on. You got to shut off and then it turns itself on. And I feel like there's a lot of times we all forget about that. You sit there and you go, think. Come on, like I gotta get this thing. I gotta do these, or I'll just do this and scroll, and I'm like, okay. Give me inspo. And a lot of times, if I'm forcing it, it doesn't happen. It won't happen. Yeah. It's when I can get an idea in the shower and go, oh, like faceless demon with a sword. Type in faceless demon with a sword. I'm like, that's what I want to do. That's you know what I'm saying? Yes. But you gotta allow yourself. You gotta. For me, it was like picking up a hobby like video games, right? I needed to pick up like almost like a mindless hobby that would let me detach from my life and use other parts of my brain. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll buy a PlayStation. You know what I mean? I haven't played video games in years. And now that I do that, there's a lot. I have notebooks all over my house. So there'll be times where I'm playing and I'm like, and I'll like, something will happen. Like I play Fortnite a lot because I'm a fucking child. And, something will happen or like the new set design will come out. I'm like, ooh, new map. Ooh, oh, you know what? Shoot log cabin thing with, and then it's like, okay, then it's back to the game again. Yeah. So like, that's why I have notebooks all over the place. Cause like inspiration will strike at times that we don't think it will, but that's the time. It's when you make space for that idea. That's when the idea can form. But when we're forcing it, we're sitting there going, come on, hit me. It's like, no, you're not in the right mindset for me to hit you right now. Now, we're super far into this podcast for me to now ask this question, but sure. We've talked about so much and I am genuinely fascinated in where does, because you and I can sit for almost 2 hours at this point and have talked about all of this stuff that we've talked about. What's interesting to me is like, and we touched on it a bit earlier, but like, when did like all of this sort of like mindset hit you? Like when and obviously we've already covered a lot of like the ups and downs and like, oh, well, it's been formed over years and I get that, but more so like even like talking about childhood and everything earlier, like, do you feel like you grew up with this outlook or this like openness of like, things might not go my way and I need to learn from them? Or was it like, oh, there was all these difficulties and I actually looked at the world in this way. And then it wasn't until later where now I can sit and share all these things. Like, that's what's fascinating to me about like all the stuff we're talking about is like, I also want to know like, where did that come from? Right. Great. Yeah. So for me, I had a very, I think I've kind of, it's a little bit of column A, column B, right? I have had this knowledge of the world that was unfortunate for a child to have. So, I grew up real quick. I was born into a family of,
drug dealers and pimps, really. It's kind of like what it was. I got found in a police raid when I was like 7 months old, taken out of a drawer, surgically removed a diaper off my body, put in intensive care, 3 months of touch and go at the hospital, and then finally able to go into a foster home. And I got adopted pretty right away by my mom. And I know a lot of people say their mom's the best mom in the world, but my mom factually is actually the best mom in the world. So she has that title. And I grew up in a world where, I got away from that, right? But I got adopted, and my mother, within, a few years of having me and my sister, also adopted my sister, my mother got divorced. I was, forced to, I lived in an apartment in a town where all my friends had, 2 parents, a dog, a picket fence. My house was never the house to go to because it was me and my mom, my sister. We lived in a tiny apartment. When I was like 8 years old, I think I was 8, my mom couldn't afford presents, and she had to tell us that Santa Claus wasn't real. Like 8 years old, having conversations with your mother. Hey, I have to tell you Santa Claus isn't real because you're not getting any presents this year for Christmas. Also, subsequently, that was the year I had the most amount of presents because within 2 hours of that, there was a knock on my door, and my church had donated a giant Santa bag of presents. And I opened the door, but I saw the deacon from our church running down the stairs, and like my sister was like, "Santa is real, Mom. You got us." And I looked at my mom, and we've talked about that day. I knew exactly what happened.
Wow.
Oh, okay. And the church and that was the guy from the got it. I grew up, my mom was very real with me. I was kind of my mom's right-hand man with everything. So I knew I would sit down when my mother balanced her checkbook, and I knew how much money we had, and I know how much groceries cost. And I grew up in a way that I was very aware of the fact that I was poor. I was very aware of the fact that I didn't have, and I know divorce is a big thing. I know growing up poor is a big thing, but we're talking about me, and I lived in a town that was ritzy as fuck. And we lived in an apartment in that town. My mother she grew up in that town, and she wanted to live there because the school system was incredible. And she wanted her kids to have all these opportunities that, she didn't get to have. But within that is all I want to do is help my mom. So I don't give a shit about school. I actually don't care about school. I didn't, I wasn't presented with a person that's if you get an education and you get a good job, you can go. My mother had 3 fucking jobs her whole life trying to raise me. So I was shot out of a cannon into reality, and I had a lot of friends that weren't. And I only know that because I had friends that weren't based in reality. I didn't understand things, So right away, I figured out that performing was a way to have people overlook the things in my life, being the funny guy. I was a class clown. And my grades suffered because I was a class clown, but that's a performance. I'm always putting on this performance so that people like me, right? And like the things I do, I used to walk around the cafeteria, and I didn't have any money for lunch. My mother was obviously there's food at our house, so you can pack that if you want, but I just want to be normal. I want to feel a little semblance of normal. I want to sit in a line at my high school and get pizza and chocolate milk and French fries like fucking everybody else, Growing up, remember the starter jackets? Remember those starter pullover jackets, of sports teams?
Yeah.
My mom made one where she took patches off of she took a starter patch off of a jacket she found in the trash, and she made it. I never had the thing, and I'm school lunches, I just want the thing. So I used to walk around and tell jokes at tables. All my friends, I'd tell jokes. I'd be funny. I'd be the fucking funny guy. I'm like, hey, does anybody have a quarter? And then, everybody, oh yeah, man, here's a quarter. And lunch was $2.25. So if I did that, 8 times, boom, I got a lunch. I learned at an early age to start putting on this this personality, this guy. And at a certain point, when you're young, it just becomes your personality. It just becomes who you are. So I learned these things at an early age of my music. And I started playing music in high school. Okay. I started booking shows in high school. I started doing variety shows. I had a TV show where bands would play on it. Okay, I'm pretty good. By the way, I still can't really play guitar very well. I'm an okay drummer. but I'm a connection guy, right? I know a guy who knows a guy. Hey, yeah, if you give me the key to the school, I'll make sure that we'll do shows. And I was responsible and worked with it. Oh, well, all the janitors know me and they love me because I talk to the janitors every single day. Like I became a people person, about the people, for the people. So I was kind of like, before the people's champion. I was kind of the people's champion before The Rock was there.
Hey, funny you mentioned.
I know it's 316 day, baby. Yeah, my wife's wearing her Stone Cold shirt somewhere today.
Love it.
But I just realized at an early age that, number one, if I put on a show, people are going to like me. Number two, I need to be able to talk to anybody ever, because I had to charm my best friend's parents, right? Because guess what? I had to go over your house and eat dinner over there because my mother was working 2 jobs. So I'm going to charm your parents so I get the invite back, not because my mom made me go there, but because your mother's like, Dave was such a delight. We'd love to have him back. The same thing with teachers. I had to charm the shit out of teachers so I didn't have to do my work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I learned this like way to be this like used car salesman sort of like, but a wholesome and a vibe. So then setting myself up, I'm graduating high school. I'm in this opportunity where like, so I was dating a girl in high school and we, I got, this is like a little bit of a minor story. If I could tell this like little story.
Totally. Yeah.
So I was dating this girl in high school and I want to play music and I want to do all this stuff. And she's not really a big fan of the whole thing, right? The whole music thing. And you're not going to get a job. Her dad, fucking forget about it. Her dad was a pastor of a church. Like, forget about it. Like this guy showing up pre-neck tattoos, but like they were there in spirit. You know what I'm saying? Like
he could see them already.
He already knew they were there. And, and anyways, we and she ended up, had cheated on me. Not only did she get pregnant and have a baby with somebody else, but I didn't even know until she was delivering the child that she was pregnant because she was off at school.
Whoa.
Right. So my whole world is like smacked. Like, it's like, okay, like I cut my hair off. I quit the band that I was in. I was like, okay, I guess this is what I'm doing. Lo and behold, all the things happen, whatever. I finally hit a wall, right? Like, here's a kid who his entire life has to fight for love, or he thinks he has to fight for love, right? And who didn't get to be a kid who has to be thrown into being an adult right away. 12 years old, babysitting, bringing in money to our household, working at my mother's daycare, like doing whatever I can, right? I finally get this opportunity where I love this girl. And I've heard my whole life, you're going to be a great father because I've been taking care of other people for my entire life. And I'm like, okay, well, here's my purpose, right? I'm going to be a dad and I'm not going to be in a band. I'm not going to do this thing. Lo and behold, we find out the whole thing, DNA test, whatever, not your kid. So here's this broken 19-year-old who his entire life has fought for love and put on a performance. I had nothing, right? I had this job I didn't give a shit about because I only got the job because I needed to make good money. I'm 19. I'm living in my parents' basement. I have no direction in my life. And the one thing I know how to do is put on a fucking performance. It's kind of the only thing I'm really good at this point. Whether that performance be musical, on video, whatever. And so the next logical step for me was, okay, well, I'm going to start a band again. I'm going to start a new band. And I put my entire being into that band because I was so broken outside of that. And so, I'd already been diagnosed with depression and anxiety in my middle school and high school years. One of my classes in elementary school was therapy. Like, kids went to a class and I went to again, I've been being like alienated since I was a kid. You know what I mean? Like, I'm lucky, and this is like a real statement. I'm lucky that I grew up with 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, 2 ears, and I was kind of cute. Because if I had one other thing working against me, we're fucking done. I'm already hiding everything else about my life. So I'm 19 years old, 20 years old. I'm touring in bands full time, and I just throw my entire being into this. And for me, my performance, my music, if you like it, that means you like me.
Right.
That means that means I can be who I am. I'm accepted to be who I am. And the more that I can tell stories, the more that I can write a song about what it's like to not grow up with a dad, write a song about what it's like to grow up as a latchkey kid or poor or whatever the case may be. And then to have someone in Minnesota go, me too. And I'm like, you too? And then someone in California go, hey, me too. And I'm like, you too? Hold on. And to me, this is blowing my mind because here I am, a kid that in my high school, even my friends now, my best friends from high school, their parents are fucking married, still pinching each other's butt in the kitchen, happily married. And I never got to see that. So for me, I'm going out and I'm meeting these people on tour and I'm essentially trauma bonding with them because I'm like, you too. Then I get to the point where I join Vanna and it becomes a more global scale. I was touring in my band before Vanna called Seeker Destroyer. But Vanna puts me on a new stage, right? Puts a larger microphone into my hand. It puts a larger platform. Now, it wasn't like Vanna wasn't a big band when I started it. I started touring in it. I worked my ass off to make that band what it is with the rest of the guys. But it put me in a bigger world. Put me with a bigger, and then I instantly, I'm not kidding you, the first record I wrote in Vanna was a concept record, had nothing to do with me. Because I was like, oh shit, no one's going to want to hear about a poor, child of divorce who hates himself and doesn't think the world loves him and doesn't have a home here. And I wrote one song on that record that may have been, obviously the whole record was a metaphor for stuff I was going through. But I wrote one song that was like kind of a little bit like it wasn't so metaphorical and more like anyone can relate to it. And that was the biggest song on the record.
Yeah.
Like, okay. So then the next record, you step into it a little bit more. And now this next record, my best friend Joel is now in the band. And now I got a guy that didn't grow up. His parents are still together, but he's seen me. He knows me. He can. So I'm like, he's like, write about what you want to write about. And the whole band's like, just, go for it. Like, no, I want you to go for it. So I start going for it. And we go on a tour and it's like, oh, there's some kids standing at the merch table. They want to talk to you. I'm like, okay. So I go to the merch table and it's like, hey man, you wrote this song. I didn't, a weekly slap in the face. And, is that song about your dad? And I'm like, yeah, the song is about my dad. And go, yeah, man, me too. And they get these conversations at the merch table, right? Well, this starts happening over the course of touring, right? That I go back to the merch table and it's not autographs or selfies, right? That's what I was doing before. I was doing that before I was opening up. It was like, hey, you're supposed to go, to the merch table to sign stuff and take selfies. And I was from a band that was like, huh? Why? For what? Like my signature's not worth any money. Like, but he was like, okay, that's what you do. But this new thing was like, and it was like, I'm telling you, man, it's like a couple of years ticked by. We put a new record out. For the first time ever, I talk about my suicide, like attempt and ideology and sort of whatever. And I start opening up about that, right? And then bam, that group of 5 kids at the merch table. Well, now it's 20 kids. Now it's 100 kids. Now you're here past the security wanting you to leave. Now it's, okay, you're known for like this exposure of the deepest, darkest things about your life. And for me, that was the way for me to like let it out and to not feel so alone. And for me, I think that's a healthy portion that I don't regret doing at all. Right. Opening up and hearing just like this, hearing like, even you just talking, me and you just talking, it makes me feel better about being creative because, you're seeing someone that is like you in a way, dealing with some shit that you deal with and you thought you were alone. So it's this like snowball effect of okay, I'm going to keep on talking about this stuff and people are feeling it, right? The only problem was there was like success attached to like reliving your trauma. There was success attached to like to being so brutally honest about this stuff, right? And I started noticing in general there was mental health was coming to more of like the forefront of my music scene and now obviously it's like, but we're talking about 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, mental health isn't even a word, right, you know what I mean yet. And so in this time, I'm doing what I should be, which is, spreading the good gospel of you're not alone. Shit sucks everywhere. And if we could put our differences aside and realize that we're more like each other than we're different, we could kick some ass. But then what's happening is I'm going back to that merch table and I am expending myself so hard I'm reliving my traumas every day. And then it's like, oh, well, now I'm going to start doing interviews about this. And now I'm going to start doing, podcasts. And now, hold on a second. Now someone saw my interview on a thing and they want me to go speak live in person at assemblies. And I'm like, and what do? I run with it. I go with it because I feel like this is the thing to do. Not understanding that there's a way to draw a line between letting everything out and then letting everything actually in. And, I respect the work that I've done in that world. I've had a lot of mental health training, and, kind of became a specialist, through organizations I was working with, and that gave me the tools and the training and the know-how and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I've figured out that performance, that expression of you're not alone. I know I'm not alone now. I get it. I got it like 2 years into fucking touring. I understood it. I wanted everybody else to get it. But right there at the stage, at that line, at the lyrics, that's where it needed to end for me. So then I could come back and have that balance of, I'm not the person that's running away anymore. I'm now running with the ball. I'm now part of this. And I think I didn't realize until after all of this tour, and we're talking about, I just spanned you like a 20-year increment. You know what I mean? Yeah, Vanna alone was a decade. And I have retrospect on it now, but sharing myself, getting on a stage and sharing in that capacity was so beautiful and wonderful to do that, to not only reassure myself, but others that but then there was like this almost like I went too far. I went above and beyond, but not in like necessarily the best way possible. But again, I did it because I don't want people to feel like me. I don't want there to be a 13-year-old out there to feel the way that I do. But in the reality of it is and it's gonna happen. I want everybody to feel included. I want all of these things to happen. But at what cost, Yeah. So I think that I'm very much at peace with knowing that and trust me, these are all talks I've had with my therapist, and listen, I've been performing since I was a kid. It's always going to happen. It's kind of built into who I am at this point. Mm-hmm. But the danger there is trauma bonding with other people over it. And you're not really helping yourself or them. All you're doing is sitting in misery, because a lot of times it was like, I'd go to the same cities and I would see the same people and they'd say the same things. And I'm like, yeah, but it's been a year since then. What have you done? And the translation that I was doing something about it wasn't there. And, did I not portray it enough? Or is it really actually not there for me? And I'm still on this act. I'm still on this thing. And it's a little bit of both, it was a little bit of both. I wasn't portraying it well enough. And a lot of these kids that were saying stuff to me, like, I actually can't even relate to you anymore because I'm not there. My life isn't there. But what was happening was it was dragging me back into it constantly. And dude, I was getting to the point where I would do a school, right? I'd go to a college. I'd go to high school, 3,000 fucking kids there. My name would be everywhere. I would be on poster. What's up? And I'd walk in and I'd walk in like this. I'm not putting on airs. I'm not dressing differently. I would tell these stories, and then I'd go in for an hour and a half in front of the whole class. Then I'd go into small group discussions of problem kids at schools, which was me. It's just kids that don't fit in that space. And I would talk to them about this and X, Y, and then I'd get in the car and I'd get on my Instagram and I was like, I just spoke at Somerville High. What a great time. I really did have a great time. These kids were out of their minds. Such a good time. Can't wait to be back. End video. I'm crying for 20 fucking minutes. I can't leave the parking lot because all I can think about is how I was sexually abused, how I was abused by, left by my parents for dead. I'm thinking about all my girlfriend left. I'm living in these moments and I'm not moving past them. Yeah. I'm not healthy moving past them. So for me, and listen, I spoke with mental health professionals that they're the exact bullet that kids need to get out of what's going on. It just, for me, I was just almost digging my hole deeper and deeper and deeper. I'm crying constantly. I'm wearing sunglasses in the airport because I can't even talk to people. You know what I mean? I'm drinking a bottle of wine in my hotel room just to go to sleep because tomorrow I have to wake up and for 6 hours, I got to talk about all the worst times of my life. At a certain point, it became unsustainable to me, and it's no longer the thing that I feel the need to like discuss. Now, do I feel the need to perform? No. Do I have the desire to perform? 100%. I did love it. I do love the connection. There's nothing like screaming something and having your head against someone else who's screaming the exact same thing, and you know they mean every word of that. That's beautiful. That's like something that is like the realest shit I've ever experienced in my life. But it had a time and it had a place, and it was awesome. And I don't want to ruin that by continually doing the same stuff. So my approach now with music is it's always storytelling, right? Always. But I got more stories than that. What are the other stories that I can tell? What are some more things? So like Hematite is almost like the other sides of my personality, the confident ones, the sure ones, the ones that knew what's going on or said, no, I was right in this situation. That's almost what this is more of like if you're like a emotionally, what did everyone used to call them? Like, all the kids with denim vests and scars on their wrists are here, so they must be here to see Vanna, right? Which I'm like, that's my people. Exactly. But this project isn't that. This project isn't this emotional damage and all this other stuff. This project's quite literally continuing to telling stories, and I hope you get something out of it, but I just needed to get the story off my chest. The stories I haven't told yet. It's a side of me that you maybe haven't seen yet because I placated the side of me that's 100% real, but I was like, well, people aren't interested in this guy. They're interested in this guy. The problem is I'm not this guy anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some people might not be interested in the new, happy, healthy me. And I have to say, that's okay. Because Vanna will be there for you. Trove will be there for you, but I can't be there for them. I can't be that guy anymore. So this is like almost like a declaration of like a newness to me, is like, these are my new boundaries. These are my new stories. This is my new shit. I hope you're here for the ride, but even if you're not, this portion of my ride is way more balanced, way more peaceful, way more self-satisfying. I just think that at some point you got to give up a little bit of like the things you did that you knew maybe like hurt you, but it was like for popularity or for because other people are going to like you for it. At a certain point, you have to love yourself. I can't hate myself every single night when I get up on stage knowing I'm singing songs that don't apply to me anymore and letting kids think it still applies to me, letting people still think I'm like this broken, whatever kind of guy.
Right.
I can't do that because I do truly, like in that moment, hate myself because I'm like, here's this thing I wrote when I was 24 years old and I was so lost and the answers seem so clear in retrospect, you know what I mean? But like at the time I'm so lost and I'm like, I don't want to celebrate that side of myself anymore. You know what I mean? So I think for me, it's like, I learned how to be this way since I was a kid. And let's not lie, right? Like the world's a different place. I'm 38 years old. I'm a white man that grew up in a time where lots of behavior and ways of being doesn't fly anymore and shouldn't fly at all anymore. And there was a lot of unlearning for me to do. I think that's like, I think almost more so than I've learned, I've unlearned so many things, and not just societal things, but things about myself that I had to unlearn. Oh, okay. That behavior is polarizing to people. Me not even understanding that it would be, I've been doing this my whole life. Okay. I'm going to change the way that I approach that. I'm going to change the way that I handle certain things. I think that life is about constantly unlearning. And if you're not open to that, you're going to have a real difficult time navigating what's next for you because you're never going to have anything next. You're going to have the same hurdles. You're going to have the same And again, you're gonna push the goal further because you're not letting yourself be satisfied with where you're at, because that's a trait that you're like, I constantly got to be going to the next thing. So I think that for me, growing up the way that I did lends itself to why I had to change. And I don't know if I went to college and did it that way, would I change sooner? Maybe, but would I have a different experience? It's really hard to say. I think that touring is it's like going to summer camp without counselors. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, there's not really anyone there telling you got to be like hey, you should really be a progressive person and learn how to grow and change. It's like, no, here's a beer. Here's a green room. Here's 200 kids
who think
have
you're
some
super
fun.
cool.
That's it.
Yeah.
Who think that you're God. So you know what I mean? So it's I never had the ego thing was never a problem for me, because the entire time in my head, I'm that piece of shit poor kid who's never fucking, done anything worth, anything. And I'm still that guy in my head on stage. So, it's just weird. It's a very weird world to live in sometimes, because it's like this thing where it's like, I've been, it's like people using their power, right? Like, oh, you have this extreme power. Like, well, first of all, let's understand there's two sides to everything. And with this power that, you might even get it too. Well, you have a podcast, you have a platform, you have this power. It's like, I'm still this insecure kid standing on this platform being like, do you guys like my hair? Do you guys like my clothes? Am I cool enough yet for you guys to go buy a record? I'm not standing up there being like, yes, I am Zeus on my mountain, worship. Be like, fuck no, I'm still not even like that. So I just think it's taken a long time to get here and a lot of balance. And I'm glad I've gone through it. I think you said something earlier. I wouldn't change anything in the way that things happen. And COVID was a reset for a lot of people, me included. And I wouldn't change it. It's for the best. Getting into a car accident and my dad dying within 6 months. Is that cool? No. But did it build a lot of character? And did I learn a whole lot about myself? Yeah, 100%.
Right.
And I think that I'm still on that journey, and I'm still defining what it means to be that kid who's performing karaoke on Sunday afternoons for his mom's friend. I don't want to be that kid forever, but there's certain elements of that kid who helped me survive my entire life. So it's time for that kid to grow up a little bit, because that kid's tired. He's tired as shit. He's been performing for 38 years, man. It's time to sit the fuck down for a little while. So it was nice to take a break. It was nice to do that. And even within this Hematite thing, I'll tell you what, if we had a question that said, what's next for Hematite? We're playing a show in a month. That's it. I don't got anything else on the horizon. We're going to record some new music maybe, but what's going to make me happy is getting on stage with my friends and playing a show. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I heard this thing that was the only two people you need to ever impress and make sure that are okay is 8-year-old you and 80-year-old you. If 8-year-old you can go, fuck dude, let's go. And then 80-year-old you can be like, well done. Then I think that that's a good, you know what I mean? Yeah. So the balance of that is I'm playing a show with my new band. I'm not getting paid for it, and we're opening up for someone, but we're playing at the bar that I own. So that's pretty cool. No, that's a pretty cool. Yeah, that's it. 8-year-old me. The fact that I'm a co-owner in a venue, 12-year-old me is fist bump, bro. Fuck yeah. And then 80-year-old me is way to be financially responsible and make good investments with your money. You know what I mean? So I think I got to live somewhere between 8-year-old me and 80-year-old me. Is
I've never heard that before, and I love that.
Yeah, I just heard some clip of it or something, and I really love it. It's really kind of ingrained in me in the last couple of months. Is it's okay, so here I bought a house, right? And that's a big deal for me. I was homeless for almost a whole entire year, and I lived in a van, and not the way that I've also said, I live in a van with my best friends and travel around the world. Yeah. I lived in a fucking van. I had to run during October and November and December because I had no heat, and I stood in this living room and I'm smoking a joint. I have my arm around my wife and I'm watching Beavis and Butthead in the living room of the home that I own. And my wife just quite honestly said, you're standing in your living room with your wife smoking a joint watching Beavis and Butthead. And I burst into tears, bro. I collapsed. And I was like, 8-year-old me, what, teenage me? Holy shit. Like, what do you want to do when you grow up? I don't know. I want to do exactly what I'm doing now, but like with my wife and in my home that I live in. And that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And man, I gotta be at peace with that, right? Like I gotta feel good I gotta feel like that's as big as a milestone than playing to 20,000 people on Warped Tour. Like it's almost like it's a very similar feeling, except right. I get to actually live in this house and I don't have to live with 20,000 people. But that's the thing is like, I'm making child me and old me. I'm trying to find the balance right there and live in that. Sorry
to interrupt, but like the thing that I'm hearing though is the common thread that we've been talking about with so many different things is that now your decisions, like keeping that, it might be a funny analogy to think of like, oh, 8-year-old me or 80-year-old me. But what that means is all of your decisions of how you're living your life and what you're wanting to do are for you. It's not for the 10,000 people around. It's not for the 100 people. It's not for the other people. Like, yes, they can be included. They get the benefit, the added benefit of you not having an empty cup, you not running on E. Of course, that's going to benefit other people, but it's not strictly to benefit them anymore.
Right. And that's it. That's the whole thing right there is that if you are keeping your cup full at all times, almost overflowing, I'm right now, I feel like I'm overflowing. I feel like if one of my friends approached me with a project, I'd be like, let's go. What do you want me to do? Let's go. Let's do it. Yep. That's the thing is if you're able to do that and keep that balance, then you can have space in your life for other people. And in that, they're not, before it would be taking advantage of you, right? But now it's not. Now it's like, hey, what can I help you with? Can I help you with something? Can I extend myself to you? For a few years, it was like, my wife was like, we're shut down. No one's staying at the house. You're not rescuing anybody. No bands on tour crashing. Like, shut it the fuck down. But now that we're here, we have a house. I got a couple of bands coming next week. I know one member and I'm like, yeah, you guys can have showers. I know what that's like. I got a full house for you. My cup is full enough that you can have a little bit. You can have a sip off of my shit, right? Because that sip might last you another week and a half, 2 weeks. Because I know what it is like to live off the good graces of other people. My whole life has been living off the love and graces of other people. You know what I mean? Down to like the most minute of things. So I know the power of people with full cups and being able to pour a little bit into yours. Looking back, I've actually truly never been a guy that's had an overflowing cup. I've always had I've been willing to dump it out, but I've never had it. But now being a man that has that cup to go, yeah, what you got? I'm good, man. I'm overflowing over here. What do you need?
Yeah. Well, I think it's the ability to live off of wants rather than strictly needs. Because we find ourselves in those positions for so long of like, I need to do this. I need to create. I need to share. I need to connect. I need to perform. I need someone, whether I know it's bad for me or not. I need to have that conversation at the end of the night about sharing traumas and all this sort of stuff. Now you get to decide. And when we all find this place, we can then decide when we want to do those things. We're working from a place of discipline and comfort rather than that, like, oh my God, I need this. Oh my God, we're worried. We're chasing, right? It's what we said earlier. Yeah. And so it's big time. I think that because again, like I can relate so much in the sense of like that, I feel like is where I've found myself within the last year to 2 years. It's
a beautiful place.
Yeah. It's like, I knew that all of that was there, but I didn't exactly I was learning how to use the tools. Right. And there's going to be new tools that, just like we've already said, we're always growing and changing and evolving. There's always going to be new challenges around the corner, but learning to figure out like, okay, how do I get to operate from a place of want where I have the choice? I'm not acting out of desperation anymore. Right. It's way more fun to want to connect with somebody rather than being so desperate for connection that you're
That's it. It's like, if I now want to sit at a bar and someone, say we play the show and some dude comes up to me and is like, hey man, what's the song about? Well, now I want to, I don't have a responsibility in my head to, now I want to share this thing with you, question for you actually, cause I know that you have like teams, right? And I have like, various, creative team, a team that, that runs the bar and venue. you finding your balance, call it your, peace with what you're doing. Have you found that you're, without doing anything, positively affecting your team? Without really even doing anything, you being a balanced, complete, okay, I'm finding this, it's always a journey, right? We're never finished, but you at least being on the right path. Have you been finding that you're like haphazardly influencing your team, your crew, your people? Like, do you feel that?
I think 100% yes. And I would say that, whether it's creative team or friendships or people around me, like anything like that, like we're having this conversation at an interesting time because like, and I don't want this to be taken the wrong way. But I don't know any other way to put it other than like in the last few months, I feel like I have never had more like confident and strong connections with so many people,
right?
Without me having to build them. Where like for years, the want and need, right? And not I didn't have like a deep, dark place that I was coming from of wanting to connect with people. But it would I would end up running on E. My cup is empty, blah, blah, blah. Now we're like, everything we're talking about, I feel like, to answer your question, it's like, yes, like, I feel like I know what fulfills me. I know what keeps my cup filled. And then almost by default, that means, oh yeah, I can dump a little bit here. I can dump a little bit there. So it does become that like almost unconscious positive influence where in the last few months, like there have been connections made with people or people respecting me in some way or valuing me in some way that I did not have to present anything to them to do so. And that's not about in a showman way. It's not about, I think I'm cool because I'm on this podcast and I'm saying cool stuff. Like, no. Like it is that, to make a silly analogy, it is that light. Right. It's like, okay, the light is shining. Right. So what you were saying is like, do you think that, we can positively impact those people around us without having to initiate it? I do think that we can, when you can reach that part of being comfortable with yourself, learning like what type of confidence you have and how to just lead with that. Like when you operate like the way that you are, how you are and who you are. It's the attraction thing, the law of attraction thing, right? And
right.
It's like
it almost people see it and they like. Some people go, I want a part of that, and some people go, I want to be that. I want that for me,
right?
You know what I mean?
And so then it creates a lot of like one thing that I love getting to do with people is creating comfort for them to want to connect with me, to come to me, or to want to be on my team, to trust that like, hey, we're walking into a project. And, one of the most fulfilling things that I've experienced in the last few years when myself and my video team has ventured in more into passion projects and actual like filmmaking, not just client projects, is I was mind blown when we started that venture at the amount of people who are active freelancers and are, getting their own work and all this sort of stuff all the time. The amount of people who just say yes to the idea. They don't have to be bought into the idea. They're bought into the experience. They're bought into what, myself, my team have created. And they're just bought into being a part of that team. They don't have to love the horror movie that I'm wanting to make, right? They don't have to know what my script is or why or whatever. Like I'm willing to share any of that with them. But that was such an interesting eye opener. And I know that's a very, specific, creatively specific example.
That's kind of what I meant though. I mean, it's like, your team is your surrounding is your surrounding. So yours would be based in creativeness. Like I like the light. I like the light analogy. It's, I asked this because, I have found myself more psyched to talk about creative projects with people, more psyched to take on larger projects. A friend of mine, so I've been getting into like engagement photos and stuff, but I'm actually like been I've done a couple weddings too, which is fun. But I've actually gotten ordained and I'm actually like performing people's weddings for them and shit like that. So it's been like another way of connecting with people. I love love. I believe in the power of love so hard. I'm a big freaking softie for that shit.
Same.
So it's funny, like, so I'm working with this one couple who, some of my best friends in the entire world who have just, part of those like people in COVID that just got stronger for you. So they got engaged and, they wanted to do this shoot and it was like in this, like, this is a great story. So they wanted to do the shoot in 6 hours away. It was the only place that we could find a bathtub that was shaped like a heart. Okay. Now, she was like, it's 6 hours away. that means 12 hours round trip if we're going to drive. And I was like, I looked at the route and I was like, yeah, but I love that route. Like up through 84, you're driving through the most beautiful places in the Pacific Northwest. I'm like, I'm fucking in, bro. If you're in, I'm in. And she's like, are you for serious? And I'm like, yeah, I am in such a good place in my life that I know you would do something like this for me. So I'm going to do it for you. We're going to have a great experience doing it. It's going to be fun as fuck. We're going to go out there. This is on Valentine's Day. We go out there, we get to the hotel, and, the groom to be comes up to me and is like, there's a problem. And I was like, oh shit. And I look, and I've never seen my friend, I've never seen her cry. In all the years I've known her, I've never seen her I've seen her happy cry at movies. Never seen her cry. She came up, walked up, and I'm like, she was crying. 100% crying. Now I just drove there 6 hours with my partner. She did too, but I also drove there 6 hours with my partner, right? I'm fucking tired and whatever. Find out they double booked the room. This is Valentine's night. They've double booked their room, and the people that they booked it to got there 10 minutes before our party showed up. So they gave them the room. The whole entire point of this fucking drive was it was the closest heart-shaped bathtub. Like, this is what we came here to do. Hey, we're going to give you the biggest room. We're going to give you the presidential suite. Like, cool. Does it have a heart-shaped bathtub? No. Right. And it doesn't fucking matter. And in that moment, I realized these people who I love, who love me, who would do anything for me, who asked me to come out here and shoot their engagement photos of like most just like fucking personal thing in the world. And now my friend's crying. So two things happen. One, I'm like, I'm going to fight everybody in this entire fucking hotel. They're dead. Everyone's going to fucking dead. I go to the manager. I go to the point where I even knock on the door of the room to see if I can possibly, Beatrice, that was me. That was daddy. That was daddy. That was daddy. Hey, that was daddy. Sorry. She's knocking. It's knocking. No, you're kidding. So I try to do everything, right? And in that moment, I had just crushed some like freelance stuff that I got paid way too much money for. My boss texted me on the way there and said, hey man, the new YouTube channel just got approved for monetization. We become a partner with our new channel, all this other stuff. Like, great work, killer work, brother. Like, stoked for us. And I get all the way there and I'm like, nope, we're doing something. We're making this shit happen today. And I pulled the guy. We found a ballroom. We had a bunch of disco balls, and we took maybe my favorite photos I've ever taken in my entire career. And we turned the whole day around. Now, to their credit, they're in love. So like the second we started taking photos, they started kissing. It was like out the window, and they loved it, and they had a great time. But it's funny. We crushed this shoot, and then the hotel offered us free rooms, and we were like, we're fucking out of here. And we left at like 10:30 at night and drove all the way back. I got home at like 6 a.m. Wow. I had to go to the office the next day. But listen, I had to go to the office the next day, but I edited those photos the next day after I was done my work at the office. I gave them to them. It made them like ecstatic to the point where like she thought all was lost. And we made something beautiful happen. And now, and they're eloping. And now guess what? They're eloping, but me and my wife are going with them, and I'm going to take their photos when they're in Vegas eloping, and it's going to be fucking beautiful. I love that. And that moment, that 12 hours round trip, 4 hours of shooting, the emotional wherewithal to be there for my friend and I didn't let myself be emotional, not even angry. I tried to like, hey man, like I talked to you. That is all on the fact that my cup was full. That was all on the fact that I was so happy in my work life, my professional life. I drove 6 hours in the desert with my wife and listened to music and played games in the car with my dog. Like my cup was full, and I was able to watch someone that got their whole ass cup kicked over and just go, I got you. And I didn't feel emotionally drained once. I didn't feel like, because I know they would do it for me. And that's only because I'm in a healthy place in my life, finally. If you caught me, if that was Davey as of 2 years ago, I probably would have cried with you at the hotel and been like, fuck it. Well, let's go home. We'll do something else. But because the power of of taking care of yourself first, you're able to then take care of other people. And that's the only way you can do it. It goes back to what I said in the beginning of, listen, when the plane's going down, before you put on your kid's face mask, you got to put on your oxygen mask, and you got to breathe first, because if you're dead, you can't fucking help anybody else out.
100%.
If you're drained, if you're empty, you can't help anybody out. And sadly, I think, and through this conversation, that's what I'm realizing, is that I was like, I only had a little bit in my cup, and I was still every day dropping it out. And I think that's proof positive of that. Like, if you're in a good space for you, you can be in a good space for other people, but you won't be that way until, and now my whole thing is like, I'm still everyone's, you want help or a hug, but I'm still going to try to help you a little bit in that hug.
Yeah.
And as soon as like someone's talking about dating somebody and all this other stuff, I'm like, break up, be single, become the best person that you can possibly be. And then you will go out and you will find someone who's amazing. That's not always the case, but listen, you're going to have a lot better opportunity of finding a partner if you are the best you possibly you can be. Yep. I mean, not for nothing, but like I started dating my wife, and she was my girlfriend at the time. And I was like, bro, I suck. Like, I am not chill. I got too many like loose ends with like other women and all sorts of stuff. Me and my wife broke up. I had to go have hard conversations with my ex. I had to have hard conversations with my friend group that my ex was in. I had to do all of this like rearranging of my life, and then go back and be like, do you still want to try to make this work? And obviously, like, here we are 13 years later, me and my homie did the thing, but I wasn't right? And it wasn't fair to her for me to be this way. And she's been an angel and perfect her entire life. You know what I mean? That's what she'll tell you. And that's a story we're going to stick with. But, it's so like, being in a better place is like, are you unhappy in your job? Are you unhappy in your personal life? Are you unhappy in all these places? Well, okay, where is it stemming from? Like, take a look at your cup. Is it empty? Is it full? What are you doing to get it back there again? Are you leaving it tipped over? Like, there's so many like things that like it really comes down to. And I hope that at least this time in COVID has taught everybody, you got to take care of yourself. It's the biggest thing, because once you do, then you can be that superhero to everybody else. Then you can. And then don't forget, something you do a lot, and then you got to go back and you got to charge the batteries again. You got to get right back over there and do it again. That's the cycle that we live in, is that, it's charge, use the batteries, recharge the batteries. There's a reason, my camera just died because that battery's not charged.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
No matter what I do to that battery in that camera, it will never turn back on. I might be able to turn on for a second and look at something real quick, but that's never going to be an operational camera unless I change the battery.
Nope.
You got to do it to yourself. And I think that for a lot of us, like yourself, like myself, people that just go. You just go. That's all you know. I don't have time. I can't stop. I don't have time for that. I say that all the time. I say that. I hear it all the time. You do have time. You need to make the time for you to be okay, because nothing in your life is going to line up. Nothing is going to be okay. You're going to have constant breakdowns. The battery's going to be too low. The cup's going to be not full. Whatever the analogy is, you're not going to be able to do it unless you're okay with yourself. And that's an important thing. And from one person who has taken the last, let's call it 3 years to get back to loving themselves again, I'm going to tell you, and not loving yourself in a way that's like, I'm the fucking man. In a way that's like, I love who I am. I love who I'm going to become. I love who I am when no one's looking. I love who I am when everybody's looking. They might be different people, but I love those things. And to have peace about who you are, I didn't know that was what was going inside. I didn't know that feeling, that anxious. It's gone now. It's not there anymore, because I'm honest with myself about who I am. I'm not unrealistic. So in saying this, it's like, I don't want anyone to get it twisted of like, and now I'm perfect. Nope. I just have the tools and the wherewithal and the knowledge to know how to identify I'm being stretched too thin. Like I said, like earlier, like I'll talk to my wife and I'm like, I feel like peanut butter right now. And I'm okay if I'm peanut butter, but if I start to become jelly and you could start seeing the bread, that shit, it's, you're already too far. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Throw yourself back in the refrigerator. So that's the thing is like, you just got to learn to just be peanut butter, baby. Spread it around, chunky, creamy, whatever you got to do. But don't get to that point where you can see the bread because it's already too late at that point. You know what I mean? The damage is done. And, so it's good to hear that I'm not alone in all this kind of stuff. And then B, I'm going to say it out loud so people know that they're not alone in this stuff, that like the world's a tough place, but it can be a very beautiful place if you want it to be a beautiful place. You gotta work. And you know what? Work sucks. Work sucks. People, who just said recently, like, was it Kim Kardashian? Like, people just don't want to work anymore. It's because work blows. Okay. And people do want to work, by the way, Kim, but work blows. Working at something sucks. When you can just get handed something, it's like, oh shit, that was awesome. But internally and in the long run, getting handed things, that's not, you got to earn. You
didn't learn the lesson from it, or you didn't learn how to use it.
There's, okay, so he just passed away recently, and I'm not going to get his name right, but he was the owner of, there's a documentary on Netflix. And it's about the owner of Patagonia and the owner of the North Face. Okay. So they're both hikers. They both were like, the whole documentary is about like hiking in the 70s and 80s and stuff. And these guys also, by the way, both left their companies sold their companies to develop sustainable water in places that don't have sustainable water sources. Okay, so it's these guys. And one of them just passed away recently, and it's the guy that I'm about to quote. But he said, and I'm going to fuck this quote up, so please go watch the documentary because it actually will light a fire under your ass to be a good person. He said, you get to the point where like you're hiking these mountains, right? And we're having a helicopter pick us up on the top of the mountain because we just hiked K2 or we hiked Patagonia. Wherever, we're in Peru and we're on this mountain. And the point, I guess, that the climb is you get to the top of the mountain, you summit, there you are, and then we can get a helicopter to pick us up. That helicopter can take you from the base, and you don't got to climb that mountain. The helicopter will take you right to the top of the mountain. You can take a selfie on top of the mountain and go, look at me on top of K2. But it's the journey that matters. The journey up that mountain, the character it builds, the how hard is it to get up there? That's what builds it because, and this is my favorite part, it's all about the journey. Because if you don't have a journey, you're going to be an asshole when you start, and you're going to be an asshole when you finish. And like that blew my mind. I was like, yeah, you're going to be an asshole because you didn't earn that climb. You have no respect for that mountain. Yep. You took us. Oh, look at me, I'm on top of the mountain. And that's what we do, right? We take a picture of I'm on top of the mountain. Respect the grind it took to get there. Respect your grind of what it took to get there. The journey that it took you to get there. That made you who you are. You know what I'm saying? Yep. I can't remember what it's like called, like Limit Zero. Limit Zero might be the name of it. Vertical. I don't remember. But it's really good, and
I want to watch it.
This is a millionaire saying, if you're an asshole when you start the journey and you didn't learn anything, you'll be an asshole when you finish the journey.
Yeah.
And I just think that's great. I think that you have to go through it, right through it to learn anything. And I guess for me, what I'm saying is like, I am happy that I was that kid that had to perform on Sundays for my mom's friends, because that taught me a lot about who I am and how this world works, and also kind of led me to become the performer that I am. But it's okay for me to identify the negative parts about that and then lose that. I don't need that anymore. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't need those things. Just like if I'm climbing this mountain and I'm carrying a bunch of equipment that I don't fucking need, but I really want it, but I don't need it. Like, next time you go up there, don't bring that equipment. You'll get up there faster. You don't need those things. Yeah. I think that I'm really grateful that I came up that way and I learned that way and I was that way. And, for me, again, I said it earlier, but there's something about, so I'm 38 years old. This year is my 20th high school reunion this year. So that means that I've been out of high school longer than I was like leading up to high school. Yeah, you know what I mean? So to me, in my head, I'm like, I've lived more life than I used to live. And I went through this whole thing of like, if I went to my high school graduation, what are some at my high school reunion? What are some of the things that, like, everyone would be like, dude, tell me about touring. Every time I see anybody is like, dude, how's touring? I'm from Boston, so that's why everyone says, dude, how's touring? That's why I sound like that. But for me, I'm like, what would be these lessons that I told them that I learned? You know what I mean? I had a very different life than a lot of my friends. And what are the lessons that I've learned along the way? And it got me thinking about 8-year-old me and 80-year-old me and like where I am right now. And am I proud of where I'm at? And, I think that I'm proud of my mistakes as well. Because I had to make a bunch of those to get to where I am, I'm not thinking about, when I was 25, 26, 27, even up to like 30, I'm thinking about right fucking now, where I am, what I'm doing, being young, being on the edge of this cool scene. I'm now thinking about like, I want to set myself up for when I'm 60 to be comfy. I want to be healthy in my body so that I can live to be 100 years old. Yep. You know what I mean? I want to start doing, and I have been for the past few years, me and my wife have been doing things that are like sustainable for my future. And it's something that I didn't think about when I was younger is how do I become more sustainable? If I worked on these things, maybe I would still be, and then X, Y, and Z. Maybe I'd be healthily still doing something. But my path is my path and my journey is my journey. And here's where I'm at. So I'm now going to take everything that I've learned on this climb and finish all the way to the summit and use the tools that I know that I have to get up there. But I'm going to enjoy the journey on the way up. I'm not going to race to get up there. That's not what it's about anymore for me. And I think that simply comes with old age and experience, really, is just like growing and learning that it's not a fucking race. Yep. You know what I mean? It's not a race. And I was lucky enough to have some mentors within music and photography that are like, they're in their like late 40s, early 50s. They're like 10 years, 15 years ahead of me. And number one thing that every single one of them says is slow down. Slow down. All of them, slow down. Oh, dude, I got all that set edited. It's done. Checking the set out. And I'm like, dude, well, hey, man, we just left. Like, did you have dinner? I'm like, no, I'll have it later. Like, hey, dude. Slow down. Yeah. Slow down. I've even been talking to people via text being like, put your phone down and go sit with your wife right now. Because I'm like, yeah, you're right. Because at some point in my life, my wife might not be able to be here to sit with her. My dog and my cat might not be here for me to stuff my face into their faces because I'm on my phone or I'm searching Instagram. I got to get this edit done because I just did this fire set. Like, slow the fuck down, man. Slow down. Yeah. Take a pause. Chill out, as long as that like your responsibilities are taken care of and you're doing what you need to do for your job, calm down, slow down, because that's what matters. Like those things matter. Your relationships matter. Your pets matter. Your children matter. Your life matters. Like, yeah.
Okay. Well, dude, to not keep you for another like 4 hours because
we could go on forever, bro.
I know that we can.
Yeah.
I have honestly, because like we have literally talked about just so much amazing shit, like so much stuff like this, like in general, like this conversation has been a long time coming outside of just like the internet friendship and all that sort of stuff.
Totally.
In general, this conversation has been phenomenal. And like I said, like I'm very guilty of like when I sit down with somebody for the first time, it's literally a normal thing for me to like sit with someone for like 4 to 6 hours in a coffee shop.
Oh my God, totally. I will lose. My wife, when I was like, oh, I got to do a podcast. My roommate was like, I was like, yeah, I'm from 3 to 5. He was like, 2-hour podcast. And my wife didn't even look up. She goes, have you met him?
Yeah. And you sitting down with me, it's just it's a recipe for the longest conversation in the world. Well, dude, to prevent ourselves from having the longest conversation in the world,
yeah,
I honestly like just have one final question for you.
Sure. Yeah.
So I end every one of these episodes with the exact same thing. So I'm going to toss it to you. So right now I want you to pretend like everyone in the world can hear you speak. So we're doing one last public speaking engagement. And this time it happens to be to everybody around the world, right?
Everybody. Yep.
They can hear you. They can understand you. And you have a live mic connected to all of them. And you get to share something with them. So if there's one thing that you get to share with literally everybody in the world, what would you tell them and what would you want them to hear?
Love and kindness isn't what you think it is. Loving somebody and being kind to them, they could be strangers. You don't need to know them. It's not being in love with them. It's loving the fact that this human is here having experiences just like you are, trying to have growth just like you are, and living your life in love and kindness does two things. It allows everybody else to live their life the way that they need to, and it also allows you to live your life the way that you need to. That if we approach people with love and kindness in degrees, right, a lot of things would be solved. So loving someone and being kind to them, regardless if you disagree politically with them, regardless if you disagree with the type of music they listen to or the way they dress, or you can't relate to the person they are because you're an X, Y, and Z and they're an ABC. Living your life with love and kindness is so important, because within love and kindness, right in the middle of that is understanding. Right in the center of that is understanding. And you don't have to know a person to have understanding in their life. You know, you might look at me, you might look at you, say a person with success, mildly attractive, can dress well, has 2 legs, 2 feet, 2 eyes, like the whole thing. Well, you must not go through anything, but just having that understanding and that kindness and love in your heart, that I might not know this person, but they go through things just like I go through things. And if I can find love and kindness inside of my heart to let them live their life, to not interfere with the things that they do, to try to understand where they're coming from, walls start to be broken down. It's the one thing I did that I don't regret at all in the last 20 years of touring around, is listening to people and understanding them and trying to have love and kindness for them. You know, I've sat with people where I look at this person and they're not a person I would hang out with. They're not a person that would be in my circle necessarily, but they're a human being nonetheless. And then their story has taught me something far beyond their clothing choice or their haircut or anything like that. That if you look at people with love and kindness in your heart, you won't be quick to anger. You won't be judgmental of people's lifestyle choices. In fact, you won't even give a shit, because all you care about is if they're happy. All you know is that you have an understanding for this person. You don't even have to be their friend. You could not even agree with something like base value, but knowing that that person is worth it and that their life is meaningful, even if you're not in it, and just approaching people with love and kindness. I think that if people acted a little bit kinder, and not like I like your jacket, you know what I mean? Not judging someone. When someone walks by you being like, look at this fucking guy. You know what I mean? We do that all the time. How many times have we judged someone when they walked by us for the way they look? Maybe the way they smelled terrible. Maybe their presentation is off. It's not who you are. It's not what you would do. Maybe they're traveling in a car that you would never be seen dead inside of. If you stop looking at the world like that, like everybody's competition, and start looking at the world through love and kindness, that's the only way to do stuff. Now, yeah, of course, there's other emotions that pop up in your life. There's discord. There's disagreements. There's friction that can happen between people. But even with friction, if you understand with love and kindness that this person might be going through something, it might have nothing to do with you. You just might be a catalyst for something, or even a symptom of what they're going through. You've experienced now. Being a big person and walking away with love and kindness, living your life through love and kindness, is the fucking only way to do it, man. That's it. That's it. That's the only way we're going to get over our problems. That's the only way we're going to get over everything. It stems back to love and kindness. Because what's the opposite of love and kindness? Hatred and being mean. So like hatred, being judgmental, being mean, those are the things that are dividing us more and more every day. So I feel like maybe the opposite of that would be really helpful to live your life in.
Yeah, dude, damn it. I love it, man. And it's real. Like
I listen, it's not a brand. It's not like a fucking thing. I have changed. I have started to live my life in the light of love and kindness. And it's the like someone pisses me off and I just like, God love you. And I just walk away from it. But I gotta have that love. You gotta have that understanding. It's not always about you. We're so selfish and we think everything is, oh, that was about me and you did that to me. And are you mad at me? Did you ignored my message? Bro, in the middle of love and kindness, that's understanding right there.
Yep. 100. And nothing that I feel like we've talked about in this entire episode, like none of this, like you said, like none of this is for a brand. None of this is for the show that we're recording for right now. No. Like
again, you can say none of this recorded, that didn't work. And I'd be like, well, dude, I had an amazing 2.5 hours with you. Yep. This was great.
Yeah, no, like and obviously I don't want it to happen, but if for some reason I noticed that everything wasn't recorded, like I'm just stoked that like we officially became friends like had an incredible conversation that like, again, it's this podcast was made for like conversations that I was going to be having with people already. And it's why not share it with other people? It's everything that we've been talking about to show somebody like, oh, I'm not alone, or, oh, someone's been through something that I have, or, oh, what a cool perspective or an interesting perspective, or I needed to hear that. Like whatever it is, like I think that like there is so much value in all types of conversations like this happening.
And so, if we could have more conversations, if you could have more conversations with people in your life, you'd find the love and kindness in your heart for sure.
100%. 100%.
Big time.
Well, dude, I seriously cannot thank you enough for spending. Dude, we talked for like 3 hours, and
it's been amazing. Listen, I'm planning a trip to Columbus pretty soon, so I'll just come and just chill with you, and you can just grab a coffee and continue the conversation.
Super down. That honestly, I have been wanting to take a trip to the Pacific Northwest real bad.
I got a whole ass guest bedroom that's yours. I got a cat and a dog that's cuddly, and they love it. So come on over, dude.
Dude, I love it. We are going to make an actual real life hangout happen now. Like we
big time.
Literally have to.
We have to.
Before we tell everybody goodbye and wrap this episode up officially, do you want people to, I mean, we talked a ton about the new project and all this sort of stuff.
Right.
Plugs and promotions time right here. Do you want people to like find you, your work, the music, anything like that? Do you want them to go check it out? Where can they?
Listen, I know I said I didn't give a shit if you listen to it, but like that would be cool if people listen to it. So yeah, the band's called Hematite. The record's called Speak of the Devil. It's an EP. It's 5 really cool songs I'm super proud of. Even if you don't really a country person or a Western person, everybody pulls something different out of it. So it's streaming everywhere, wherever you stream music. I got a couple of music videos up on YouTube that I worked really hard on with my wife that I love, that if you get a chance to check it out and you like visual stuff, go do that. And then, all my photography is, I got a website. I got an Instagram, whatever. I'm going to be doing a gallery soon. So if you like things with your eyes, I got some of that stuff to look at too. So we got your eyes, we got your ears, we got everything for you. So check it out. It'd be awesome. I mean, maybe I'll cook something. Who knows? You'll eat it.
The list is endless because you know what? We can do whatever we want. We're just going to keep doing it. Right?
That's right. That's
dude,
right.
This was an absolute blast, man. We did it.
Truly.
We did it. We made a podcast, dude.
Love it.
So there it was, my conversation with my freaking dude, Davey. I am very stoked on that conversation. Like we talked about in that, it was sort of a long time coming. Friends on the internet to, still technically friends on the internet, but we finally chatted outside the DMs, and I am damn glad that we did. Davey is such a rad dude, and I seriously cannot thank him enough for sharing everything that he did in this episode. Biggest reminder that I can give you at the end of this one, go check out Davey's new project, Hematite. He's dropping an EP, so make sure to go keep an eye out for that. And of course, keep up with the project in general by following it at hematite.inc. That's hematite.inc. Of course, all the direct links to the music on Spotify and all that will be listed directly in the show notes as well. Outside of that, just go give Davey a follow. Like, check out his music, but also his rad photo work that he's been making lately. You can follow him at Davey Muise. You can also follow this show at WYDH Pod. More importantly, though, please just double check to see if you're subscribed on whatever platform that you checked this one out on. If you're watching on YouTube, which is my personal YouTube channel where all of my shows and creations are housed at, that is youtube.com/Ross Tyson. Tyson is spelled Theisen. Same with Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Find those follow buttons and give it a freaking stone cold stunner. And if you want to go the extra mile, leave a star rating and a review. I know everybody says those exact same things on every bit of content that's going out around the internet, but it's kind of because we all have to, folks. All of those things help shows like mine a ton. All the follows, the subscribes, the ratings, and the reviews. It helps us get seen, found, heard, and simply grow a little bit more on this big, gigantic monster known as the internet. So it truly does all help us out, folks. You can follow me personally if you'd like to as well. I am now at Ross Tyson over on Instagram. If you really liked what you heard in this episode, though, at the end of the day, just tell somebody about it. Mainly, of course, tell the internet, feed the machine, toss it on your Instagram story, tag me, tag the show, tag Davey or your friends and tell them to check it out. Whatever you do, just let someone know if you like what's going on around here. And finally, one more reminder as I bid you adieu to check out our sponsors from this week and, of course, support them if you do see fit. Ingram Audio, they're aiming to make your process of making music more simple and streamlined, and they're doing that with their new product, the Producer Kit. So visit ingramaudio.co for purchase details and any other information on them that you want. If you're looking for some concerts to go to, well, Promo West Productions is bringing a lot of those your way here in Ohio. Visit promowestlive.com to find all the information you need or to find out what other shows are coming through Columbus, and then go and snag those tickets at axs.com. And if you're creative in the world of video, audio, or photo, then go check out Midwest Photo here in Columbus. They've got tons of services from gear rental, gear purchase, used gear, buy and sell, printing services, film development, and simply a knowledgeable staff that's ready to help you with your photo needs at any given time. So go check them out or visit mpex.com for more information. And finally, Ope Cold Brew. It's dang good, and it's available in a 4-pack or in a subscription brought straight to your frickin' door. You can place an order or find all the information for that over at opecoldbrew.com. But that is it. That's a wrap. Close the curtain, shut down your apps, and put your yellow clothing away. 81 episodes in the books. This was a freaking awesome conversation. And guess what? Like always, I'll be back in the next episode with another awesome and brand new guest that you may or may not know of, but they'll be sharing a brand new story that you've for sure never heard.